Monday, November 18th, I'm going to call the meeting to order, Selectmen's meeting. First order of business is to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public input. Do you have a public here at all? What's up?
I have two items, both of them are quick. Number one, I hope you people realize that the work done on the new berm down there in 90 Mile Beach is failing as well as the last one did. The erosion is continuing. The seams between the blocks were not sealed.
Yeah, I went down with that.
Yeah. They're not finished yet anyway, so it's
Well,
over their engineers.
that's going to be an issue probably.
Can we leave this in the record?
Yes, you may have that one. And reference was made to expanding the parking lot down there in 19 Mile Bay. The proposed area where they intend, the proposed area is contaminated soils due to the confirmation of Act 2000 in 1986. I have maps that you're welcome to copy. I need these back. The annual summary 2019 testing data will be available January 2020 and will be published on the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Service website. These are the correspondence from the state of New Hampshire regarding the test site, test borings up there. And this is a brief summary of the contaminated data readings. Now, as you may know, we received, Act 2000 received a 30% abatement on their valuation because of contamination. We received 50, Mike Phelps received 50, and the fellow across the street, I think we received 50% reduction in land value because of the contamination. Those are in the records.
I don't know if this is really clarifying anything.
Well,
Does it, where on the map does it describe the contamination?
It doesn't say contamination. This is just a plot plan.
Right.
The entrance is here, parking. Well, I don't see it on this. The one that the
2000.
planning board forwarded to me had the a short strip that was not in the conservation easement. And it is part of this upper area that abuts Act 2000. Act 2000, when they attempted to mitigate the contamination from the fire, just buried their debris around the edge of their foundation, and it got told to take it out because it was leaching.
So this is, I mean, some of that land is Pact 2000 land, but I guess I missed now. This land
Is the conservation easement.
is town land, well, it's not all
Yeah,
in
town land.
Some of it's in conservation, some of it is not.
Yes, and that not that part is what I'm talking about, being contaminated with residuals from that.
Well, I don't know that here's a map. I don't know if that precludes us from doing anything.
Well, they have test borings up there that show decrease, increase, decrease, fluctuation.
Right. But in any situation like that, there's a number of ways to approach the parking issue without impacting.
Well, if you excavate, you have to get rid of the spoils. And then by disrupting the surface materials, you're just gonna open whatever below that to more leaching into the soils. You're not gonna ever eliminate the contamination down here.
No, you aren't, but you also aren't gonna eliminate the use of the land. And that's why we have the brownfields regulations. I mean, I actually have done a brownfield reclamation, and it is possible.
Does the town wanna go through that expense?
Pardon me?
Do we really wanna go through that expense?
I don't know that we'd have to. What I'm saying is that in the concept of that is that that you can actually utilize the property for something, even though the underground
It's
is
contaminated, yeah.
contaminated. So, I mean, we just have to have our engineers look at it.
Okay,
That's what we'd have to do anyway. Because I
Okay.
think we're,
just to have that in mind
Yeah.
before you,
is this yours?
yes, you wanna have a copy, right?
Yeah, I think, could we?
Yes, as long as I can have it back.
Yeah, perfect. I'll give it to Karen
I can
and.
pick that up another day.
Sounds good.
That'd be
All right.
great.
Yeah, thank you.
Travel safe, sir.
That's it, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks, Fran. Anybody else? Seeing no one else. Review of the minutes. Friday, November 4th
I'm all set.
at 8:30. Public minutes.
I'm all set.
Okay? All those in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
And there was another for November 8th. I don't know that I have those, Karen.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see that. You stick those in the folder?
I hope so. I meant to. I can go run some copies or if there's
Here you go.
Oh, okay, so I must have.
Well, you weren't here anyway.
I've read them and I have no issue.
No, I was here. I was
Yeah.
sitting like this, all uncomfortable, but I was here.
You were here?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant
Yeah.
me.
No, it was November 1st I was on the phone.
Okay, right.
Yeah, we already did those. So,
So I'll move to accept by Lloyd. Do you have a second?
second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Cemetery budget, Ms. Weeks. Get stuff in,
I tried to tweak it.
just don't tweet it, okay?
No, I didn't tweak it. We have, I've reduced the sexton. Looks like it went down.
Nice.
We brought it down a little bit from our last meeting.
Mhm.
The sexton line item is reduced. The general maintenance is reduced, that is all the maintenance that's done on all the cemeteries.
Mowing and all that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
all the mowing and trimming and bushes. The old cemeteries restoration is where we're putting the big
Big number.
increase. The maintenance of those is up there in the line above. But this is for tree removal and stonework,
Mhm.
and, cemetery walls, as well as the monuments being repaired. The cemetery improvements line, is $1,000 instead of $4,900. The work that we did this past year was the new gates,
Right, and those are all done.
and they're all done. We paid for some of those last year. The 1,000 for this coming year would probably be out here for landscaping around the new gates, and we still need to figure out how to better delineate the roadways to make sure the vehicles travel where they're supposed to, instead of just right across.
Yeah.
Cornerstones, that's an in and out account. But we've been really busy this year, and I don't think this was our first year of doing those as an in and out. So the 850 was a guesstimate. But I think, we think 550 will be enough. Office supplies, we didn't really spend anything this year, but we will the coming year because we're getting forms made up for maintenance records, where there's a form that the maintenance guy will fill out for each of the old cemeteries as he visits them, reporting what he sees and what needs to be
So
done.
then you can build your plan going forward on, yeah, here's where we have to do some restoration work and that sort of thing.
Right.
Are we computerizing any of this? Any of your Amelia?
Yeah, how would we do that?
I don't know.
Dead people don't use computers.
Well, she's not dead yet.
Oh, jeez.
We're all volunteers, we don't get an annual stipend, we get nothing.
Right.
Except satisfaction for a job well done. And usually not even that, because the problems that come in are all highly emotional
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah, well, we're dealing with dead people.
Well, we're dealing with,
Live people. or
yeah,
related
with
to dead
people who are in pain.
But I'm wondering whether the encyclopedic historical knowledge base that you have contained in your head can somehow be transmitted into some sort of electronic format, so that when you decide you've had enough, we're not recreating the wheel or wondering what we're doing in certain situations.
Well, I'm trying to keep good paper records,
Okay.
and I don't have secretarial assistants, so
I mean,
it's kind of a lot of them are
or-
at my house instead of here, and the ones that here aren't necessarily filed in a systematic way that someone could easily pick them up. They're more like clumped in folders. So, I mean, that's something you can think about for the future is that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether a laptop with some spreadsheet stuff on it would make it easier to keep track of. I mean, we've got a lot of cemeteries.
Yeah.
And, you know, what one cemetery needs, but we're not gonna do for 5 years, might just not gonna be done at all, because there's no, like a CIP report thing.
Right. Well, I get it. No, I get it. But and we get questions all the time. Well, I can't find my deed. I don't know what my plot is. Can you find it? It's like,
Yeah.
well, if you're really lucky, I can find it, but they don't get recorded at the registry anymore because we're
No.
selling rights to burial. We're not selling land.
Right.
And then the really old ones, they had deeds, but they didn't record them. So it's,
Well, keep it in mind that, you know, I don't think we'd be averse to the idea of increasing the computer line to accommodate for the cemetery trustees, if you thought that would help.
okay.
Okay.
We'll work on that. Let me just write that down.
We're supposed to be making things better, isn't that my job?
Right. I'm still working on, you know, getting tree estimates. These guys, they don't like doing bids, they don't like contracts, they don't like all that messy paperwork. And they don't like talking on the phone.
So how do they get a job?
They're busy, they don't need more work.
Okay.
They're all busy, and that's kind of the bottom line. I mean, playing telephone tag is just very frustrating. But we did get, Guy got Gary Brooks out to look at the Fields Jones Cemetery, and his crew was supposed to be over there this week, and that hanging branch out, there for $300. It's like, really? 'Cause they climb trees
Yeah.
and do it the old way. So anyway, I'm gonna be meeting with Gary to go over some of these others and maybe
And didn't
these
Jim,
guys.
Jim was doing some tree work, wasn't he, Jim Beam?
Yes, he was getting
Yeah, he had a
prices.
Well, he's had a truck up on Ledge Hill Road.
Yeah, there's a truck up there. He's a resource we could tap for the cemetery. See who he's using or try to coordinate that. And maybe he's got a half a day's work and you got a half a day's work, let's get a whole day and then they'll come and do it, that sort of thing.
So anyway, that's a work in progress. Karen, we haven't heard anything about the holding over money.
Right, they were, New Hampshire Municipal was at their annual meeting, so that I know there will be, they wrote an auto reply that the replies will be delayed. So I'll probably hear something by tomorrow, I'm thinking.
So, and we don't have a warrant article. We would need a warrant article for that if it's
Right.
even legal, so.
Yeah, and although I'm coming up on my end of my third year here, we have yet to see anyone from the state legislature here since I've been elected. So it's hard for me to tell you how to go about creating legislation that would solve your problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, do you have more questions? Do you feel you could support this?
Yeah.
27.8.
I'm gonna move that we approve this budget. Should we go that far?
Sure. I'd be willing to make a motion.
All right.
And I'll second.
I'll move that for cemeteries, 4195, the selectmen accept in the budget of $27,850.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you for your efforts.
Moultonborough, Tuftonboro perambulation, Mr. Russell.
Yes.
Hey, come on down.
Yes.
You got your boots on?
Yes.
We're ready.
Well, I was kind of hoping you people had more data than we did. At one time, apparently we did have a disc from Dean Clark, and it had all the waypoint data on it. And this is our report, the same as the report that I got from Karen.
So you got this already?
Yes.
Okay.
Through moving and, reconfiguring our back room, our archives, we lost all of that stuff. We contacted Dean Clark, and he came over last Wednesday, and we sat down and went through an 1.5-inch thick folder he had of all the town lines that he's done in Moultonborough, Tuftonboro being one of them. And he found nothing. He had no longitude, latitude for any of these off his GPS, off his waypoints. But what he did have that I thought was interesting, and I'm going to give you a copy of that, is some of the notes that went with each one of the waypoints. So at least once you get up into the woods, you'll know what you're looking for. In some cases, it's a bound found, stone pile with blazes, stone bound found, first blaze. That I thought was interesting enough to copy over. Everything else he had, unfortunately, was not indicative of a waypoint. It was just discussion and some notes that they had made.
So he numbered the piles of rock.
Yes, well, that's what I have too.
Okay.
All the
Also,
same stuff.
that's the survey that goes way back to just after.
He had that, but said it wasn't all that helpful in the long run. Yeah, he did have that.
So there's 244 through 256, let's say, on this number run is just referencing the pieces that he found. It isn't, we don't have a latitude, longitude, or
Unfortunately, no.
altitude.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
I went up with Bill Stockman, and we got, this was 12 years ago or so, and we got to a point where we climbed up, and there's a saddle there, and then it gets really steep.
Yes.
And I remember, I went up with Dave Dolan up on the Sandwich Molten Borough Town Line, which meets up there in Blacksnow. And mountain goats are having a hard time. And it was right after that ice storm we had. Streets down everywhere. The moose had been in there though, because there was scat everywhere. But they have a lot longer legs than I do. I can't imagine it's a whole lot better up there now. I mean, those things are gonna be laying on the ground, but it's still gonna be very, very steep. Not knowing where these waypoints are, but having some indication, it might be worth hiring someone to go up and get digital data again.
Right.
I don't know if the legislatures, I haven't heard whether that bill had come back to say, you don't have to preambulate every 7 years or not. I've heard that may happen, but I didn't hear that it has happened.
Yeah, I haven't heard that.
That would be nice if it did, because then when you do have those data, the GPS data, I mean, it's not going to change.
Any idea what it would cost to
Um,
do our boundary? The nice thing is straight.
Yeah, I want to say it was around $7,000 12 years ago.
Let's assume it's up $10,000. Does it
Yeah.
make sense for us to split the cost?
Sure. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the one concern that we did have, the Board of Selectmen had, is in the area, well, from 109 to 171, where Stevie Hunter had a big cut in there. And I mean, it appears when you're on 171 and you're looking past the cemetery,
Yeah.
that's the end of his cut, and that's actually the town line. But who knows if some
Well, I
of
know
those
it-
monuments got beat up.
Right, and they own both sides of that line.
Yeah.
So I know Steve cut hard on the Molten Borough side, but I think they cut on the Tuftonboro side as
Yeah.
well, so, yeah.
So that right there is a real concern. Now, up in here,
Where nobody goes.
where nobody goes except the hikers,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's one thing, but down below is I think more important, and there's a lot of landowners in there.
Yeah, from the standpoint like the Barry Ennis issue with Ossipee.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's where people are doing things that is of concern or should be looked at. The stuff on the side of Ossipee Mountain, there isn't any development going on up there.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's all owned by conservation.
Yeah, a good deal of it is. I walked the Ossipee Molten Borough Town line with Harry Merrill in the same year, and he had GPS, and I forget where he got the data because we didn't have it. But when we walked that line, we hit almost every one of the points with his GPS.
Wow.
It was, I mean, that's how accurate it was. We just had another GPS, put in all the data, and we followed it right along until we got farther into it on the Sandwich end, and then there was some problems there. But that was, Jeff Coombs had been up there, and they had been logging, so they had like a 5-acre patch that was clear cut, and then they had another 5 acres that wasn't cut. So I mean, you could jump from one to the other, and they had a survey. Jeff Combs had his own survey on that, so that was very successful. Just to know that those waypoints were correct, and you could go up there anytime you wanted to and just plug them into your GPS and find them again.
Right. You gotta, on the survey end of things, I mean, it's like my Mount Pleasant property actually creeps into Wolfboro, so you can't really use my survey as the town line survey. It only goes over there, I don't know, how far is it, Steve, 20 feet maybe, or 50 feet? But it's still not right on the line, which one would be.
It's interesting, the only one, I mean, Sandwich was a long line, and it ended up out in Swan Lake.
Yeah,
The only one we really had any problem with is Center Harbor, where people had moved things.
Yeah.
Center Harbor is the only community I know that is the most jigged and jagged.
Yeah.
It's like an
Yeah.
amoeba.
Yeah, and some people have deed problems, with boundary line adjustments and such forth, and they weren't accurate. I do take that back. Dr. Glick had actually pulled out a concrete post
Yep,
in his field. It was in the way of his cutting,
yes.
sidebar cutting. So we pulled the concrete post out, and that's one of the ones Harry and I couldn't find. So we ended up having
It was
another
in his
company.
barn, if I remember correctly, or
That's
under his
not-
barn.
that's
Yeah.
not the oddest thing that he has ever done, but.
Oh, no, it's not, no. We,
Oh, yes.
we had quite a time with that, getting a new one in.
So if we were to go to a survey, do you have one in mind?
Well, Dean Clark has retired. He still does it. He says I do about 30, 35 projects a year. That keeps him busy.
Yeah.
I don't. Jimmy Hambrook is familiar with the town lines because his dad did all of the rangeways in town. And there are some rangeways down in Ball Peak and in that area.
Right.
Yep.
So, and that's kind of, again, that's the critical data down there. So, Jimmy Hambrook would be a logical one, and I know Dave Dolan, he did the sandwich line. So he has some of the data for the top up at Black Snout, but when we got up to the corner up in Black Snout, it's this big rock cairn, and it's got a bunch of paint on it. You can't miss it. You can't miss it at all. And every time someone's gone up there, they put another rock on top of
There
it.
we go.
So it's pretty good. The sandwich, Moultonborough, it's Ossipee, Moultonborough, Tuftonborough.
I've actually been with my dad to the point where Ossipee, Tuftonborough, and Moultonborough all
Oh,
come
yeah.
together.
Coming down that backside of Blacks now,
Yes.
that's gotta be a little bit.
As
Oh,
a matter,
yeah.
as a matter of fact, in here they have the fire line where they finally made the stop of the Mount Shaw fire.
Oh, sure. I don't know if you ever heard this story, but when my dad was logging, him and a guy named Chet Davis from over in Moultonborough Center,
Yep.
other side,
Mhm.
had, they used to go in on pieces of land. They owned about 1,000 acres at one time, and they'd go in, it was all sustainable cutting. They'd go in, clean out their dragways, take down the good lumber, and then clean it up and on their way out. And then they'd go back in another 5 or 10 years and do it again.
Osprey Dow at
It
Durgan
worked,
Road did the
it
same
worked
thing.
wonderful, but he said up in that area, they call it Shawtown.
Yes.
And if you can find it, he says, there's still what clearly was a road, and there's cellar holes up there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Who knew? You knew.
I remember Chip Joseph used to make roads. He was a fish and game officer, but he moonlighted at making roads, putting water bars in.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, it took 2 hours to get up there by our four-wheel drive going through the Marple Estate. And there were one of 3, this is in the late 80s, one of 3 virgin timber stands in New Hampshire. Pretty stunning.
Uh-huh.
It's since been harvested. But
Sure.
There's hemlock, too. I think the land's good.
Because all of us natives are showing our age here, folks.
Well, that's one reason our forests are a lot healthier than many of the other states around is because, you go in there and clean out all the garbage. Hopefully
Well,
that
New England
continues.
box, New England lumber went out of business, so that makes it a little better.
Yeah,
Alphonse DePrizio's and
yeah,
clear cut. And
Boy, those
you
are
can
names
still
from
see
the
that.
past.
yeah,
The crown height is just coming back.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's,
Although I had appraised a piece of property over in Effingham, and Redmond 40 is it? They're loggers out of Maine.
okay.
It was over by High Wash, and they had just gone in. I ended up calling Peter Paul because it was so bad.
Yes.
What a mess! And you knew right away. You don't have to be a forest into forest science and how it grows. You knew it wasn't going to come back. There was so much junk in there. There wouldn't be a straight tree in the next 100 years. And what a crime it was. But anyways, that's another story.
Well, maybe we should get some names together.
Okay. Okay, and we'll do some
RFP.
correspondence,
See if we
work
can
up
get
an
a-
RFP. I'll put this all to Walter. Yeah,
Cause, I mean, we could make it, we gotta do all 3 lines.
Right.
We gotta do Ossipee, Moultonborough, Wolfboro. So, I mean, we can certainly make it worth somebody's while. I don't know how, I know
Oh,
Jim's
yeah.
pretty busy. I use Jim Hamburg as well.
yeah. He is busy, but I mean, if he knows that next spring he's gotta go up there, maybe too late now,
Yeah,
if he's really busy.
take a hike. And then it would take, I mean, it's a long day, but
Yeah,
I think you
Yeah.
can probably do it in a day.
yeah, and I mean, he has some data here.
The nice thing, it's a straight line.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and if, I mean,
That helps.
Yeah,
Do you know of anyone?
which would kind of make me lean towards someone, I mean, I think Dolan does good work, but we really would like to have it kind of in GPS format or something
Right.
that we can.
yeah, and he can
Fast
do that,
forward.
Jimmy can do that. The
Yeah.
only, I mean, the big reason I mentioned Jimmy is because I know he, down in that, what I would consider a more critical area down by Ball Peak, he has that, and we have all that drainway data,
Yeah.
but his dad did all that. So I'm sure he's more familiar with where those rangeways are in relationship to the town line.
Yeah.
And that really is the critical area right there. So,
Yeah, there's one that runs across from my grandparents' old place out on Severance Road.
uh-huh,
It runs out towards Tuftonboro. I think it's now a road. It's
oh, yeah.
some developments.
Cloudview Drive or something like that?
It's down,
Yes, it is, my brother built a home for him. God, I can't remember his name now. It's just below the new firing range.
yeah.
Yep.
It's just below that, yeah. And there's a lot of wet in there too.
Yeah, I remember my cousin Tyler was living there.
Huh?
Tyler Severance.
Yeah, oh, I remember,
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember. My sister and Molly were absolute best friends
Yeah.
forever.
Riding around in the hearse.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Why are you smiling?
yeah. That was,
Those were the days.
oh God, yeah. Yeah,
She was in my class.
yeah, Molly, well, yeah, and I didn't know Tyler real well, but I do remember.
Do you remember
that?
Bud, the older brother?
I don't,
He was a little bit older than I.
yeah. But Tyler had a green MG. You remember the green MG?
Yeah.
And we're coming from the beach, my mother was driving, and Tyler was in front of us. And he went back and forth across the road like this, and my mother followed him. And he knew that would happen. He knew my mother would follow him.
Didn't Tyler,
Old stories.
didn't Tyler camp out for a few winters?
Oh, I imagine.
Yeah, it was kind of rough living out there. I remember him calling. He was going to shoot somebody. I forget who it was, but I was on the phone with him for over an hour. We got,
Trying to talk him down?
yeah, we got him talked down.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
Well, do you think you'd have an RFP before town meeting so we could include the money in our
Oh,
budget?
yeah, oh, absolutely. I'll put that down. I'll definitely push that.
Yeah, then whatever in 2020 we can get it done. And that's
Okay.
probably been our goal.
Yeah.
So if it's
Well, every boundary we get done is one less we have to do, so,
for now.
yeah.
Yeah. I won't be here in 2020, but you as well.
You're not running again?
No, I've done it for 16 years, I'm done.
I don't know.
I'm done. You can only stand it for so long. It, sometimes, well, you know, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Well, that's always.
Yeah, and I know that,
Life moves on.
but it's just a lot of work, a lot more work than people.
Well, then
You know, when someone first runs for selectmen and they have an agenda and they want to change the world because the current selectmen aren't doing a good job, they get into office and all of a sudden it's like, bang, hit with, you know, they ran up against a brick wall. Things don't move that fast and you're not going to change everything in a day. And by the way, the state laws that direct a lot of what you do.
Right.
Especially your budgeting, you know?
and you've got 5 selectmen,
Yeah.
so it's even tougher. I mean, it's hard enough to get 3 people to agree to something.
I was a selectman when we had 3, and I agree with that 100%. We got more done with 3 than we ever do with 5. There's just so much,
Yeah.
so many different opinions of how things should go.
Right, and you get.
Well,
get
as you
those
know,
issue
the most
candidates.
important thing that a board does is keep the trains running.
Oh,
And-
true,
And,
true.
you know, people that aren't real tuned into it,
Mhm.
don't stop and think about that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's great to go chase this, that, and the other thing that's different, but all the basic mechanism of the town government, if it grinds to a halt, then,
And it always takes more than a year
Yeah.
for that new selectman to realize that there's a certain way things have to be done. I mean, we got a good board, don't get me wrong, they're all good people, but it happens every time you get a new selectman.
And it isn't like you do, I mean, you're just the executive, I mean, it's sort of like Susie coming in here. We don't do the cemeteries.
yeah.
The cemetery
right.
trustees do it. You know,
That's
the
right.
budget committee, you've got all of these various people that you have to sort of
Yeah.
shepherd along in one direction or another.
Yeah, well, our DPW handles the cemeteries, and that goes into their budget, so,
Yeah.
along with the landfill and everything else that has to do with it.
And you're a much bigger town
Yeah.
as far as expenses and
Oh,
property and
yeah,
everything. I mean,
yeah,
we're pretty
it is.
small potatoes.
But you're a good neighbor, my friend.
Well, thank you, thank
Much
you.
better than our southern neighbor,
Oh, yeah.
pumping their septic into our property.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Yeah, well, the summertime puts a real strain on services.
Yeah.
You know, fire, and that's one reason we decided to foot the bill for a paramedic on the ambulance,
Yep.
is
It's
because
insurance.
those 3.5 months in the summertime are brutal on those guys, on the volunteers. It's absolutely brutal. They're out all the time.
Yeah.
You think, oh, yeah, a little town, you know, we only got 4,500, 5,000 people. Well,
Until June.
Until June, when you got 25,000, and
Right.
everybody wants a police officer on their street, and everybody wants that ambulance there.
Plus you have the transients just driving through. They have heart attacks and accidents.
We do a lot.
And you have your own ambulance?
No, but
'Cause we-
Stewart, we
Yeah.
built a bay in our life safety building, and Con Stewart somehow, because they're closer, their transportation costs went down because of it. Because they can staff an ambulance right at our building, so they can get to Tuftonboro quicker,
Yep.
they can get to Sandwich quicker. Center Harbor's not quite so bad for them, but still, you know, on the Moultonboro Center Harbor town line, that's quite a distance.
Seems to have been a good partnership.
Yes, yes, definitely. So, I mean, and I like it because we do have so many people in the summertime, elderly come up from Florida.
Oh, yeah.
That's the,
Camps.
and the camps,
Summer
all the,
camps.
I mean, those are the people that need those services the most.
Excuse me.
And we're all getting older.
Really?
Yeah.
Adam's done a good job though with, we did buy an ambulance down here.
Yeah.
He's got a billing program going, we're getting
Yes.
some money back to offset the costs.
It's already
Yeah.
saved a couple lives.
But
Yeah.
he's, Stuart's been good.
I'll bet, yeah, they were tough to begin with when they
Yeah.
first got in here, before they realized what our needs were, the new company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but both sides have worked together, my
Yeah, oh, yeah.
friend, which is a
Yeah.
compliment to everybody.
Yeah, well, as you know, we've talked about regionalizing
Yep.
our own ambulance between 5 or 6 towns.
Right.
You know, our own ambulance service and centralizing it. And actually, the school district did that. Remember we were talking about bus services too?
Yep.
They did that. They went out looking for, they got in with Interlakes.
Yep.
In the Sandwich, Tamworth, and looked for possibilities on aggregating for bus service.
Right.
And they actually went out to bid, and they got one bid back from First Tube. So the question is, would it be worthwhile to pool all those resources within 5 towns and have your own bus service? Well, then you gotta buy all the buses.
Right.
There's a lot of upside to that because you control your own destiny, but there's a lot of downside because it's such an upfront cost to us.
Well, and your capital decisions are all being politically driven as opposed to economically driven.
Sure.
So, yeah, we need to replace 5 buses this year. Well, Jesus, we got a warrant article for this, that, or the other thing. let's do it next
Yeah.
year. So you're not making the same kind of
Yeah.
decisions that a private company would be
Yeah.
making to.
Well,
really answer.
anything you do, it was, when we reclaimed our landfill, I want to talk about an education of the voters. And that went on for 5 to 6 years. We put money in escrow, not in escrow, but in a capital reserve fund for almost 10 years to do that.
But now you don't have
Exactly.
a covered mass. You have clean property that can
And
be
we
used.
got rid of that monitoring
Yep.
requirement
So
by
you had
the
it all
state.
removed?
Yeah, had it all removed. In fact, there was a town in Pennsylvania that EPA demanded they close. And they bought a lot of our garbage
Oh.
because it was so clean. Yeah, they troubled everything, then they trucked it off to Pennsylvania so they could cap off their landfill. DeVito did that, and they marketed our garbage like unbelievable. There was a couple of places in New York that took a little bit, but that cost us $5 million, I think, to do that. We had a third of it in capital reserve, so it benefited in the long run. And 10 years of interest, every time we put money in there, we made more. Compounding lovely.
Yep.
You know.
Well, you travel safe.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry to take up all your time.
That's okay. Good to see you.
Have a good day.
Travel
You
safe.
have a
my
good
friend.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Nice to meet you.
We'll get to this and correspond with you. You'll be the
Sounds
lead
great.
girlfriend.
All right, sounds great.
All right,
Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay. Steve Wingate, come on down.
Hi there. How you doing?
Conservation budget.
What's the number?
4612. I didn't know there was gonna be a quiz this morning. I would have studied.
You're up on it.
Okay. Defend it, buddy.
I can give you, first I can give you an update on Cops Pond.
I saw the truck or car was down there the other day.
You didn't call me.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't get an answer for 2 days. I did leave a message because I was gonna be out most of the time. I don't know whether, I got the number that was on, it's on our conservation.
Is that where you park? Is that where you park when you go there? Just on the side of the road?
Yeah.
You don't have any parking.
Then I
Yeah.
apologize.
We saw the truck. We still have to haul away the old stuff,
Okay.
so I'll try to work that out with you.
I'll see you tonight.
Yep. So it's almost done. And we were gonna finish it this morning. And it's, because of the forecast yesterday, we put it off to Wednesday. Now the same thing is forecasted for Wednesday. But all it needs is,
We didn't messy week.
some braces, and the railing, the rest of it is done. We did run into, some unexpected problems, like you often do. Some of the, piers, were broken off under the water line. So we had to set our coats on what was remaining for the piers. That took a little extra time, lining that up. So more difficult working underwater, so to speak. Plus, we had to chop the ice out.
Yeah, it'll be fine now. It's frozen.
But it's gonna be, gonna last longer than us when it's done. Okay, I think the only thing that's different on this budget compared to last budget significantly is the administrative assistant.
Yeah.
And that is actually not much different from previous years when I took over as chairman. There were boxes of material out there, over there in our office, and piles on top of the filing cabinet. And when we had to look something up, it was nearly impossible. So I was working with our administrative assistants at that time and trying to budget what it would take to clean that up. Each year, she, because of other, personal reasons and her other part-time jobs, she never had time for it. Then I'd come in the next year with the same amount on the budget and be criticized because we didn't spend it the previous year. Now we have an administrative assistant that does have the time available. And so
So how much of the $11,000 are you figuring is a one-time occurrence? And you're cleaning up old stuff.
Possibly. Let me go down a list of things.
Okay.
First is easement files. And she, with the help of Kate Nesbitt, has done a lot of work on that. So we have a good base file right now. But things like the one down opposite the town beach, when we went and looked in that file, there was only one document. And all it did was explain, all it was the easement agreement. There was no other information. And to understand that, you needed more information. We did find a little more going back into the town files for that period. But there was a question mark, that information ended with a question about whether DPW was still holding that easement, or whether they had an intention of sending it somewhere else. We still don't know who's actually holding that. It'll take a little, contact with the state, probably a series of phone calls and waits and things like that. So that there are those kind of things. Plus, all the easements that we hold, we're required to monitor them annually. So, and that's all done with our volunteers. Some towns pay foresters to do that. We've been doing it, but it requires coming in, getting out the file, copying maps, looking at the previous ones. That's kind of work could be done by an assistant, which help us. We're pretty much maxed out on what we can get for volunteer time right now. I'm putting in probably every other week, 20 hours a week, just on the stuff we're doing. So that's that could run into legal things. When you have responsibilities when you hold an easement. Then there's I'm going to call it e-filing. I do a lot of correspondence with people on things that we're involved in by email. It's most convenient for me, and then I send a copy to the administrative assistant. She saves them all, but they're hard to retrieve because we haven't developed a filing system within the computer to do that. And that takes a little time. Permit files. We as volunteers look at wetland permits that go through DES to be there on the ground checkers. We don't do any enforcement, but we do actually
Observe.
take the permit, contact the landowner, go out there and look at it, and come back and write a report. And then it goes into our files, and periodically, particularly a butter will come in. They've been notified, but they don't know what the details are. So they want to actually see the details, or they see the construction going on. They want to, they think it may not be within the permit, so they want to see that. And when you can't pull it out of the file because it's stacked up above or something, that can be embarrassing.
So
We're keeping up, currently, we're keeping up.
is Jack in charge of making sure they're in compliance with the permit, or is the conservation?
Just to make sure that they're filed properly and that the right information is in the file. DES sends us at least 3 different kinds of correspondence for the life of that permit. And that plus the permit needs to go in the file, plus whatever we've sent in. And our current assistant is keeping up with what we're doing right now, but we have a lot from the past that is still just sitting there in a box. Ongoing project support. For example, the watershed plan, that, we were the advocates for that. That's probably gonna be completed in 2020. And then there'll be follow-up things to do for that. And that's another thing that'll stress out our volunteer time. And and it's something that we've never budgeted for before. That will, an opportunity to do some work on that. Grant writing. There are a lot of small grants out there that are available, like loose license plate grants, and they're not big enough to warrant hiring a professional like Rick Vanderpool to get them. Their average grant's probably $4,000 or $5,000, but it's enough to do something like Cops Pond. We probably could have got a grant for that, particularly loose license plant grant. So if you've got a good example and they're available, you can have somebody like your administrative assistant actually do the work on that. And if we have to volunteer into it, it might be some technical information, or in that case, it'd be what the costs were.
Right.
But, so that's another thing we could be doing with some training. That person could be know more about easements, which would help do some research. We have easements by other agencies like Lake Region Conservation Trust or Society of Protection of New Hampshire Forests. There's a couple of others. And we could acquire those easement documents and then have a file on those. And when it comes to looking for adjacent landowners to make that area protection better for wildlife habitat or access to the public or something like that, you have that information to build on. And then deed research for acquisition projects that we have, or something like Kate Nesbitt's easement, that's going to be filed. If we pay Rick Sager to do that, it's going to cost extra bucks. It's not that hard to do.
We want to make sure it gets done. I mean, there are instances in the recent past where things haven't gotten
Yes,
registered, and it becomes an issue,
that's right.
for the landowner and for the abutters and everybody else.
And then we have some two enthusiastic members who are trying to do education for the public, education for kids. If we do something in conjunction with the school, I have a meeting coming up with the school to do some joint projects. That would be the school's responsibility.
One of them was the birdhouse project, right?
The birdhouse project, that was not supported by the school. We supported that. We got the families involved through a school program that those two individuals put on. But we financed the birdhouses and the equipment to go
Seems to
with
be
it.
successful.
We'd like to do some more projects like that, and it requires some support, particularly in producing handout materials or acquiring information on cost of materials or something like that. So some of it is nickel and dime stuff, some of it is big stuff, but it's I think some of it is cleaning up past. We still have 2 boxes of stuff out there. Most of it is a rapid infiltration basin stuff. Is redundant materials. Requires work to sort through everything, throw out the duplications, and then properly put it into file folders so it can be found.
Yeah, it's being able to find stuff that's key, I think.
So that some of that would be one time, but a lot of it is, what I see is us providing better service to Tuftonboro. When you look at the last survey that was done to actually ask people really reasonable questions, which was for the 2000 plan, the biggest item about how you'd like to see Tuftonboro in the future was keep a rural atmosphere. And that's pretty much what we do. And then when it was for activities, Number 1 was swimming, number 2 was boating, number 3 was hiking, and number 4 was fishing. And those are all things that we provide some kind of support for.
Right.
So I'd like to see us do more, but we're kind of maxed out on what 7 commissioners can do with some more administrative support. And if it doesn't work, then we won't spend it. And you can hit us next year for it, but I'd like to try for it.
I have in front of me the $24,020. Is that what you're asking for?
Total budget.
Total budget?
Yes.
I guess, just to
Go ahead, sir.
I'd be interested, obviously it's too late in this budget cycle to do it, but next year, when I'm home watching this on television, I'd be interested in having someone from the Conservation Commission, maybe Steve, approach the university, see if we couldn't get some people who are in college currently for forestry or whatever other conservation type degrees are concerned, and maybe creating a line item for supporting them, and they come up and do some of the field work for us. So it gives them an opportunity to do field work, us an opportunity to take a little bit of a load off of our commission.
Well, that's what the TAP does for the road study, right? They use a student work study.
I'm sure they
Out of
do,
Plymouth,
yeah.
yeah.
And I'm sure there are kids in school right now that are looking to be in
Yes.
whatever forestry programs or conservation or.
We've done a lot of research in this area. Forestry is something I worked in a lot prior to being in Tuftonboro. I worked for after I retired from the Forest Service, I worked for the New Hampshire Timberland Owners Association, and we had an education component that I was responsible for. It's difficult to get students out to the field in class, what's called classroom time, and get anything out of it. We did have one project where they GPSed all the hiking trails here in Tuftonboro, but they've lost all the data
That's handy,
that UNH has.
yeah.
I was on the UNH advisory board for Carroll County for quite a while, and I tried to work things out there. They had an intern for one summer, but I completely maxed out on countywide projects rather than working.
Well, maybe that's what, obviously, I mean, the cooperative extension's gonna try to jump in there and everybody else, but if we have a program, and I'm just talking off the top of my head, that actually would benefit the student financially, make it more interesting.
We could try to hire an intern.
Yeah,
Right now, the forestry school, wildlife school are not doing well. They have almost a minimum student population. Not too many kids are interested in that anymore. So it's tough.
well, God, those things ebb and flow. I mean, not everybody's gonna be an investment factor.
I think the best chance for this kind of thing is we used them this summer for the watershed. AmeriCorps, yes. I've looked into that. There is an AmeriCorps group that works in statewide projects for parks and recreation. They'll actually come and camp out and do whatever projects you want over a 1 or 2 week period. It's not cheap. It looked like maybe about $40,000 for 2 weeks of work, and I was looking at them for doing Great Meadow, working on the Great Meadow project, particularly the trail. But they come in with like 20 kids and they work right along for 2 weeks. And when I say kids, these are mostly college students who are looking for.
That sounds like a crew for a substantial project, not for
Right.
a lot of the ones that we do here in Tuftonboro, which is, 1 or 2 guys working on it for mean, a lot of the things that I think about, if you throw,
Somebody has
if you
to
throw
be
20 or
there. 40
40 people at them, they're falling all over each other, and they're not, you know, it's not,
Yeah,
not
it
a
takes quite a
productive
lot of
use.
planning to get to the point where you're gonna have 20 people working.
Right.
The Lakes Region Conservation Trust got 4 kids this year through Squam Lakes Association. So Squam Lakes Association, through the goodness of their willingness, they're actually sponsored and provide the housing. So the kids get a stipend, but it's just for living expenses. And now I'm also involved with the Winnipesaukee Association, and we got 2 this last summer. Spent quite a bit of research on that, and what you find out is if you expect the kids to find a place to live, it's not gonna work.
No.
You gotta find that for them, and then they have to have a car. And we managed to get 2 kids, but it took a whole year to
Well,
get
in
2.
Tuftomer, I think you could do with a bicycle. I don't know that you actually need a car. It's not that big a place. The other thing I wanted to mention before Lloyd moves us on to a vote is the grant possibilities. And I'd suggest that you try to find a grant for $5,000 to $7,000 to actually have parking at the viewing station at Cobb's Pond. I mean, I don't see parking on the side of the road being a viable use of that thing that you just spent all last week working on. I think we ought to, and town owns property wise, just put a little bump in there, some 4 or 5 car parking and make it available to the public. And I don't think the septuagenarian bird watcher isn't gonna park on the side of that road and walk in there. So we need to make it a little more available to them.
There aren't many people that know about it.
Right,
Yeah,
right. The
it's-
signage isn't all that great. So I think if you're looking for some place to grab a grant, that would be a good place, I think. It would actually be a lot more visible as to what the Conservation Commission does in Tuftonboro as opposed to, I mean, the Great Meadows, wonderful, but it is kind of out of sight. It's not something you can drive by and,
That's why we're trying to do the trail in there, so
Yeah.
that people can go down there and appreciate it once you get that view from the edge. And it's interpreted, you know what the town owns around it. I think it's impressive.
and I'm not personally afraid of putting a little more money at conservation. When I look at the amount of land,
Right.
the land mass of Tuftonboro, which is almost 50% in conservation or current use, I mean, you've got a lot of property out there that's
Protected.
The current use really doesn't mean much when it comes to conservation, you know.
No, but it's still,
It's an incentive, but it's.
yeah,
not
and it's
conservation.
underutilized as far as development and that sort of thing is concerned. So I think it's important to understand that we've put there's an awful lot of property in Tuftonboro that isn't housing. It isn't commercial, it isn't industrial, it's just open land. All right, Lloyd, I'm sorry to keep talking.
No,
But
that's
it's,
the purpose.
you know, I thought I had until 10.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move Conservation 4612. We recommend $24,020.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we still have to work on that warrant article for the Mirror Lake project.
Yep.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. I'm still wondering why we aren't buying the whole thing.
You know, that opportunity
This
is gone.
Yeah.
May I ask a quick question? For the administrative assistant, you said the things that were done to back up the increased funding. What was the project you said for 2020 that would add a lot? Is it something with the Great Meadow? I didn't hear what the bigger project was. You had a particular project, I think you mentioned.
Well, he's got the Mirror Lake project that he's working on.
Okay.
Also,
I just didn't catch the name.
Yeah, that's not in our budget.
Right. No, he was
Or
talking,
increased
he went
work
through a
to
whole
work.
list of things that they're working on.
Yeah,
Getting
I
the-
didn't know if you had it.
Getting the files up to date.
Oh, yeah, I have that.
Right.
Yeah, I can.
And,
Yeah.
you went through a dozen
Yeah.
things that would basically double the amount of time that the administrative assistant is engaged.
Right, and then and next year, I think, look at, if we can accomplish all of these straightening out of the files, et cetera, how much of that 11,000 goes away? Or is there another project that needs doing?
We'll also know more about how some of these new ideas work out.
Right.
So, but, I mean, I just didn't pull that number out of my hat.
Your hat? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
hat. We sat down.
We are on cable, but we've got limitations.
Trying to figure out how many hours that was, and then just added it up as we went along.
And we appreciate your not wearing your hat at the table, thank you.
Yeah, we don't want to know. Can I just take a quick second to get a glass of water?
All right, thanks.
See you tonight.
Howdy, chief. How are you? Good. How about yourself? Good.
Just a minute. I thought Tuftonboro had some back roads. I took on the Mighty Stewart concert in Brownfield, Maine, at Stone Mountain Art Center.
That's a ways out
You
there.
can't get there from here. You'll go to the mailbox and turn left.
Yeah. We went there for Bob Marley
Yes.
2 weeks ago. It's a nice area.
Did you eat there?
Actually, we did.
Oh, thank you.
It's expensive, but they have really good portions.
Oh, yes.
Okay. We're ready.
What would you like to start with, sir?
Want to do your update?
Sure. Currently, we've had 184 fire calls, 271 medical calls, 55 service calls, 22 special details, for a total of 532 calls. Gas furnace inspections were 34, oil burner 9, wood pellet stove inspections 5, life safety 26, for a total of 74. Last year, for the year of 2019, we had 512 calls total, and we surpassed that currently. We had 54 calls since my last update with you guys. The department continues throughout the year to try and assist residents who may need smoke detectors. If a resident has questions about their smoke detectors, heat detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, they should call our central fire station at 569-3381. Also a reminder to be very careful this time of year. Ice forms very quickly on the walkways, porches, decks, and driveway, causing slips and falls. If you have any elderly neighbors, I would suggest that people try to keep in contact with them because it's a very tough time of year for them. The fire department is in the process of renewing its EMS license, which expires 12/31 of 2019. A new license will be good for 2 years once it's renewed. The number 2 furnace at the central station, once again, has gone into lockout mode, and I was just on the phone with Sam Mechanical. The new service manager is trying to get a representative from HTP to come up to our station and address the furnace. Again, the boiler is a MEL299N. On the last repair, when they were up here, they also had replaced circulator pump on the hot water, as we had no hot water, and that's working properly now. The yearly testing and maintenance for the central station sprinkler system has been completed by Hampshire Fire Protection. There was 5 gauges on the system that were replaced at $30 each. The system has passed its inspection for this year. The yearly oil change and service for the central station generator is due shortly, and will be set up with Milton Cat. They come in and take care of that usually towards the end of the year. The mobile 75 kW generator that runs the emergency shelter at the school failed to start during the last storm. We brought it to the school to hook it up, and obviously we attempted to start it, it would not start. The issue with the fuel filter housing was found and the part was replaced. The unit now starts, however, it will not run under load. We have currently $1,600 in repairing the unit. The technician from Milton Cat is going to be going to Lake Trucian Fire and try to diagnose further problem with it. The generator is a Caterpillar Olympian 75 kW
And
diesel.
how old is that cat?
And a little bit further down, it's a 2003. We got it, we received it in a emergency management performance grant. We have not put any major maintenance into the unit up until now.
So it was a $39,000 generator?
The generator and the electrical work at the school totaled $39,000.
So how much, what part of that was the generator? Do you have an idea?
I think that it was like 24,000 and change.
So it's 16 years old right now, so you need to keep us apprised of how that repair goes.
Okay. Yes. And as you will see, as far as the further, right now the generator line is at what was that? $1,428.49 spent of $1,600 that we budget. We do not usually account for any major expenses in that line item. We keep it at the minimum as far as yearly maintenance that we have, unless something major comes up. So that item will be overspent, and this is a good example of why we don't spend, any major items in our budgets, or like emergency management, or I try not to spend the major items until the end of the budget as far as it goes. I will hold off on purchasing anything further as far as emergency management until this is situated. I do have a line item for $4,000 that is there for the all hazards plan, which will not be done until next year, and that money would have needed to be carried over. If I go over on that, obviously that section hopefully won't hear of any cost for that. Boat 1 has been removed from Pier 19 for the season. We have it at Central Station performing maintenance. Once the ice forms on the lake and it can no longer be launched, we'll put it in Melvin Village Marina for storage. One thing that we did notice when we were at the boat, or we noticed that some of the boards are getting really punky. We're in the area of the boat as far as that they're pushing right down.
You're talking about on the pier?
Yeah, on the pier itself. Some of them are getting rotten. I don't know if there's anything that is in the future for the board replacement. I think that some of them have been replaced in the past.
There has been some boring done down there.
I did see
Some other
that.
work, working towards some sort of repair agreement between the town and the Department of Environmental Services and the state. So hopefully we'll get that done before the end of December and get it into the 2020 budget.
Right.
And then we'll do the pier next year.
Yeah, I just didn't want someone to say, oh, we didn't know about this.
Yeah.
So that we could budget for it, type of thing. I don't think that it's not a huge area. It's a few boards here and there.
Yeah, who does the ice meters? Is that Jimmy?
No, that's Jack. Jack.
Jack, okay.
Yeah, we put one in and Jack puts the town in. That's what I have for update with that. I'll keep you informed about the generator as far as it goes.
Great.
And further with that.
And we've got the ambulance budget. I have two of these. Does anybody not have one?
Well, they are, yeah. You're looking forward to it. You can
So I
pay
think
that.
we've discussed this one pretty thoroughly. This is a one-year
One-year
extension
contract.
on the, or one-year contract under the same kind of service situation that we've had in the past, is that right?
And we're gonna continue to do it annually, is that the plan?
I would suggest for this year that you do it for just a year. There may be some things that come down the road for next year as far as when contracts change and things like that. I did hear from the owner of Stewart's, or the person, Justin, that's in charge of Stewart's, that possibly Molten Grove, and I don't know, I think one of the selectmen was here this morning, and I don't know if they mentioned anything about ambulance contracts and stuff like that. I think they were here for something totally different.
Yeah, we were talking about the perambulation, but they did.
We did chat a
Selectman
little bit about
Wakefield
it,
did
yeah.
talk about ambulance service.
Mhm.
Is Stewart okay with a one-year
Yeah,
contract?
they're right now, they're fine with it, and
Okay.
they've been, standing behind everything that they have promised us. One thing that he did mention is that, obviously, the company that they were bought out by, is from Massachusetts. And that if there's any issues with billing and questions that our residents may have about billing, that the Meredith office be called. There has been some issues, I guess, because there's two different types of policies. Obviously, you have the policy from the larger company, but Stewart's has their policy that they continue to follow for New Hampshire as far as billing wise. And some of the New Hampshire people that get sent to the Massachusetts office, which would make things totally different as far as how things are handled. So if anyone has any questions about how their bill has come out, they more than need to contact the Meredith office. And I have that number for you as far as it goes. It's on the paperwork.
Yeah, I think Karen would need that, I don't know that.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be a selectman item, it would probably be more of a Karen's
Yeah.
situation.
Lloyd?
When does the contract start?
The contract runs out in December 31st.
So it's it coincides with the annual year.
Yep.
Great.
And again, it was 1.4% increase over last year.
So I will move 4215 ambulance service budget in the amount of $195,174.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great,
Good job.
thanks, chief.
Thank you. And I have emergency management and government buildings left for you. I am just hoping to get an idea of where I'm at with both right now, and we'll get the further information in.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Is,
Two.
is the chief of police
Have a
there?
good day.
Chief of police, is he out there?
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, okay. Okay, no problem. All right, yeah.
Doesn't look like the chief of police.
Undercover.
Want to do some signatures?
Sure.
All right. So first off is the,
Thanks, Joe.
On his way.
Thank you, Joe.
on his way, okay. The Carroll County Broadband Initiative Council that I've been meeting with and party to has asked that we send a letter to Consolidated Communications and also to Charter Communications and, yeah, those two on our cable. This is pursuant to a RSA that's just been passed, 38:38:I, or row number 1, parentheses C. And it gives us the authority to ask for a location and or address of every person who's served and unserved by cable in the town of Tuftonboro, and has at least a 25 megabytes per second download, 3 megabytes per second upload speeds. The locations don't have to be subscribing to the service if available, but the service must be available at the street location to qualify as served. Provide either a list of unserved addresses or a list of served addresses to meet this request per 2018 New Hampshire Senate Bill 170, RSA 33(3)G, Roman 3. And our contact person will be Karen Coke.
So,
Yeah.
I move that we approve and sign those letters.
Are you seconding that?
Are you?
I will.
You're on the committee, go ahead.
Okay, I'll second it. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Do you folks know if there's another company that I should be doing? They do ask for any, is there a TDS, do you know if they offer? Should I be writing them too?
Well, TDS offers DSL, and if it's any internet service, I would think the phone company here offers DSL as well.
Right.
Okay, so we probably ought to do, if it's including any kind of internet,
Okay,
we probably ought to include telephone companies.
okay,
Yeah,
which I
no.
did consolidate, I did consolidate it, which is fair point.
Right.
So I'll do
Okay.
one for TDS for next meeting then? Okay, I just
Yep.
wasn't sure what there was, if they.
Yep.
Chip, the last meeting is now on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw that.
The next one is December 12th in Wolfboro at the town hall. Just an FYI.
I have 2 abatements. So one of the property owner, Mountain Road property ID 59-3-6 is being abated $259 as town-owned property was not marked with a municipal exemption. So I guess this is town-owned property.
Yeah, that's that one you recently took.
Right.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I've got a yield levy, tax levy on, for Steve Hunter for Wood Cut, $854.30.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I have a tax exemption for military service. for Susan Walker, the Local Trust, Peter Walker, and all the paperwork, I guess, is confirmed.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This one needs his signature.
Yeah. All right, chief.
Jeff, this one needs your signature.
Oh, sorry. Chief of Police. How's your budget coming?
In the other day.
Yeah, it's in your folder, yeah. Not yet. It's not been entered yet, I just figured we should start today, and we just received it Friday, so.
Just one.
Yep, makes sense.
I did it, I kind of had to redo it for a variety of reasons, but you wanted a separate thing showing the cost of like adding an officer or 2 officers.
Yeah.
So I did those 2.
Do you want to do your update first?
Sure. Okay. As you can see, October we had a fair number of callouts. We had, looks like 7. We had, I thought the first 6 arrests, I had to go back through. It was actually 5 arrests by mistake. The county assigned 1 to us that was actually in Tufton Harbor with somebody. It was one of the sheriffs picking somebody up on a Cape deal, so. As you can see though, our motor vehicle stops are up,
Yeah.
summonses are up, accidents are down, arrests are up, felonies about the same, offenses down a little bit. I think that it actually is probably close to about the same on offenses. Incidents were up somewhat too. We also, in October, we had a drug take back, which I think was like 15.7 pounds. We had what's something else? We did not have Halloween because I moved it to the 2nd, so that's actually technically in November. But we did have a lot more kids show up, probably because it didn't overlap with Wolfborough's. So we probably had a lot more kids show up despite the, and a lot more traffic because of it. We had, and then for the month we did the pink patches and we did the beards for bucks for the Child Advocacy Center. So that was our.
Okay. Any questions for the chief about his activity before we get into the budget?
Yes. The status of the job reviews.
Still working on them. I had people out and I was away, so.
And I think we have a couple to do, don't we?
Yes.
Need a pen?
Counting
So,
Oh,
right now, when we have somebody that's away due to a bereavement, if you will, or related to a health issue, but we had people off because of that too, so it's been
Did you get a request that the state of New
for accidents up at the corner.
accidents?
Yes, I did, I gotta go through that.
Okay. If there's not money in the budget, is it appropriate for the selectmen to hire someone to do it, or what? Don't wanna.
No, I don't think it'll be, it's just a matter of me finding some time to sit down and do it. It's not a direct, you're talking about printing out the reports
Yes.
and redacting the information that, as they've done in other places, yeah.
Is there anything this board can do to assist you?
The only thing I didn't know is the time frame they were looking for. How many years back did they want to go?
You know, I'll research that. I thought it was 5 years.
Okay. Well, I'll start at 5 years.
And you understand that the state is willing to work with us on making that intersection a little safer.
Okay. It's not how I read their response, but.
My
The
conversations
governor's
with
council has said that to me, but I don't know if they have any power anymore.
It's, we'd like to help you, but is what I kind of read that to mean, because you have the historic house there, you have, and it went on and cost sharing and
Well,
so.
and.
Not that I wanna be
No, as the ongoing conversation that we've had, and I think we've tried to have with the state, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay, if you went up and you were gonna re-engineer the intersection to be a safe intersection, you'd move the house and you'd do all kinds of things, hell, maybe you can put a rotary in, I don't know, but the state isn't gonna fund that because of the traffic level and incidents and all that kind of thing. And we're just looking for, can we do something with signage? Can we clear some bushes back and
I mean,
anything that happens in the near term is gonna be on our dime, not on the state's dime. But something that intersects with the state highway has to have their blessing in order to be allowed.
I've raised that intersection issue with them in the past. When they used to have a thing where they'd have to come out. There was a law that required them like every 2 years to a regional meeting with stakeholders, and we get notified and we'd go there. And it was over in Ossipee, and I think both of them were in Ossipee. And I think they changed the law afterwards because basically they'd go and say, well, we don't have any money for that. So, I mean, I asked for a speed zone sign down in Melvin Village, a reduced speed ahead. And gosh, you think I was asking to break the state budget from the person that was leading the meeting from the Department of Transportation, because now we're gonna have to put one everywhere. I'm like, well, we've got out of the 6 locations in town where that would potentially show up, we've got 5. Can we just have one more on the other side of that? He was just like, nope. And then finally, the sign guy on the side came to me and said, we'll take care of it. We got it done.
Yeah.
But my point is, I have raised that intersection in the past, and
Well, and
It's-
some of the things for increasing awareness of intersections that I see other places outside of New Hampshire and a lot of places which suggest to me that they're effective because they're being done. It's like, we're not doing it in New Hampshire yet. If we do it in your location here, then it's kind of like what you were saying with the signs. It's like, well, we want to be uniform throughout the state, so if we put one up in Tuftonboro, then suddenly you got 250 that want to do the same thing, and so.
yeah, I mean, I'll do that. I'd rather, we'll see what they offer up.
Yep. So anyway, that's one of the pieces of information that they are looking for to move the conversation down the road a little further. So
Yeah.
the sooner you can get it done, then the sooner Lloyd might be able to have some success in advancing the dialogue.
No, we need to, obviously, I'll get that done. It's a matter of me running it, but we've had a few, it seems like the last few years haven't been, we've had some major ones in the past, and but I don't think anything's happened, sticks out in my mind. A lot of near misses, and I mean, I've seen that myself, but it's not we'll see what I come up with for stats for the last 5 years, see where it goes.
Thank you. Curious, are the radar units, stationary radar units working?
They are. I've got to get them back out. We had to charge them up. They're working. Pretty soon though, they'll be going in, but I had originally told someone that it needed to get, once they were charged back up, to get them back out. And they said we've had a bunch of people off and for medical or whatever reason, but we'll work on it. They'll be back up. The sign particularly, the trailer will, depends on the weather. We're supposed to get some inclement weather. Rather not have either one out if it's gonna snow and be plows going, but there's potential for damage, but we'll put the sign up again probably after this storm.
I was at Tice's up in Route 16, up by Troop E.
Yes,
They undercoat vehicles for $150.
okay, that's closer than what I was checking into.
Are you gonna consider doing 1 or 2 cruises a year?
I was gonna do them all, but I had to schedule it, and right now I've got some other things we're scheduling to get done. We've got,
Do you have money in the budget?
well, we're gonna be over on maintenance and we're over on training, but there's other areas where there's some money that has been saved, so.
Thank you.
So you went to a convention
Yeah,
recently?
IACP, yeah. Saw some, found out that the trailers, like we were getting prices of like 17, 18,000, I found some cheaper, significantly cheaper trailers, that would, and the signs, message signs, different options there. There was training on de-escalation, I went to 2 trainings on that. I went to a training on, kind of surprised me, social media, some of the legal aspects of that. I always thought it was kind of wide open because if somebody posts something, it's wide open, but there's questions as to the constitutionality of wide open. Posted on bulletin board, it's public. If you post it publicly on the internet, is it public? That's kind of an interesting
Well,
concept.
Yeah. Hate speech is hate
So
speech.
was that at McCormick? Is that what it was?
Yeah, McCormick's over there.
What town is, or what state?
Chicago.
Chicago?
Yeah.
It was,
Is there any literature that would be interesting for us to read?
I do have some, and I haven't printed it off yet, but I did send myself links to it. So they give you an app you can get, and then you can send download links to yourself. And I've done that, and then probably in about a week or so, there'll be maybe 2 weeks. There'll be videos of some of the classes. So what I did is I timed it. There's so many classes going on at once. I would go to ones that weren't videotaped, and then I can watch the videotape ones like a month after that's how I used my time. So there's a couple of them simultaneously. So I'd go to the one that wasn't videotaped, and like there's one on strangulation, I believe it is. It was videotaped. So strangulation and domestic violence cases, which has become an issue in New Hampshire. Not an issue, it always has been, but it's in the last few years
There's
became a
more.
law, and there's been concerns about how it's applied. So. Yeah.
All right, want to move to the budget?
Sure.
I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
The uniforms, you're all set. I mean, you cut that by $2,500. So you're good with the uniforms you have.
Yeah, or basically that'll be a replacement and a few other things, but yeah, that'll be replacement. That's why it went down to a lot to equip a new officer, if you will.
Right. So I can say the same thing about conferences and training, that $2,000 is an additional officer that you need to keep trained.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm gonna try and, like, in fact, tomorrow, Officer Gillis is going to a training at Sig Sauer, so we're trying to, and we sent people this year. I did more this year with some, we had the training we did at the fire station with Tree Street Medical, so we've had some, trying to get out. Who knows what'll happen, there's a new director for the academy, maybe things will change there, how things go. They do a lot of good basic stuff, but if you want anything kind of outside of that kind of refresher basic, it's not, you may have to go other ways to do it, so that's why I sent Officer LaFave and Officer Gillis to one on drug identification and seizure. We did one on Officer Sergeant Hathcock went to one with Gordon Graham through Primex. So we've tried to get some more out there.
Well, the Primex shouldn't cost us anything.
Sometimes there's a small nominal fee to some of the training. It's just like municipal association. Sometimes there's a little fee to it. Not like going to someplace else, but
Okay, and we don't have tablets in the cruisers currently?
we do.
Or we're gonna have to change to get e-crash and e-ticket?
We do need to change them for e-crash and e-ticket. So what happened was, I had them planned on, so we have right now Surface tablets, and they only have one USB port. There's no real way to connect, to do e-crash and e-ticket, you need a scanner for licenses and registrations, and you also need a GPS location, plus we need, so we need a total, and plus you need a printer. It's about 4 different
So the
USB
GPS
ports.
isn't included in the tablet?
It may not be, it's not in the Surfaces, it's not, no. So it's, when you buy a tablet or laptop, it's like an option, you know, it's like a
Right.
touchscreen is an option, different things become options, if you will. But if we go to this e-ticket and e-crash, we can get a grant to help offset some of those costs.
And how much would the grant be? Or what are you thinking it's gonna be?
I'm thinking it's gonna be close to half of that cost.
Half of the 21 or half of the
Right.
10,000 acres?
Half of the 21. I don't know for sure, it depends on how much. I told them if they want us to go to e-ticket and e-crash, this is the state, we need to offset the
Find
cost to
something,
us.
right.
Because otherwise it's an unfunded mandate, if you will. The part of it that kicked this discussion going forward though too was Tom Albert had said we needed to replace the tablets in the cruisers anyways. Since that time, I've had a conversation in 2018. He said, this is the year changing. 2020, I mean, excuse me. I since had a conversation, no, it's actually probably can go another year or two. So, that's, he thought there were Windows 7, they're not, they're Windows 8 Pro. So they can go a little bit longer, a couple of years longer,
But-
before they're out.
But if you have this line item, you're gonna replace them.
If I have this line item, would replace them, it went to the CIP
Okay.
to also, but the grant, I mean, it's technically, it's 50% of the tablet and 75% of the printer, and we can offset it with in-kind. So like the install cost, they'll pay towards the printer, but we have to buy the mount and stuff for the printer. Basically what it is e-ticket and e-crash is we generate the reports in the computer in the car, and we electronically submit everything to Concord. So it's a big advantage for them, it's more than us.
Right.
Because right now, if they get an accident report from us on the old style system, they have to have somebody type it in manually, so there are boxes of them sitting there to get entered.
Seems like
E-crash
it's,
just-
it seems like it's an advantage for us too, because your officers can be doing the reports while they're
Right.
sitting next to the road instead of in the office,
And then
right?
the other
There's
end,
less duplication of stuff
we're
here.
gonna have access to that information from the state end. Am I right?
I'm not 100% sure. We
Because
can,
then it
I
would-
can get it, I can get some of that anyways.
Then it would benefit us.
Yeah.
I mean, if you stop somebody who just had an accident, it'd be nice to know if they had a DWI yesterday. You know, it's,
Yeah, we have some of that access already anyways.
right,
So, right now, there's several agencies in the county that have gone to this. I think the sheriff's office, because we're networked, we're hubbed through them, so
right.
they are doing just the e-crash, I think. They're not doing I don't think they've set up for the e-ticket yet. It changes some of the data points they get to in the e-crash. It's like an 8-page report versus a 2-page report. So there's a lot more data that's captured and information that will be useful for accidents and locate. That's why they want GPS, because they want a good location. They don't want
Right. Yes.
some hodgepodge location, so that's. So, that being said though, part of the reason I put it in was because what prompted the discussion was Tom saying they had to be replaced next year. Turns out they don't have to, but if we're gonna go to e-crash and e-ticket, they do have to be replaced.
But this is an item that's not gonna have to be annually done.
No,
So I would assume that in 2021, we're back down on the $10,000 range.
yeah, we're below,
Okay.
we're below that year.
And you dropped the faster internet, because you
I-
can't read that fast, or?
I just don't see, The idea behind it was to up it here and put it into my budget, but we're talking about building a new facility. I can't see upping it for us
Yeah.
if we're just gonna be moving. We're surviving with what we're doing. It's not great, but it's not awful. It would've been a little faster for uploads of photos. That's the big thing we were gonna gain. Not, the download stuff was not a problem, it's the upload of photos. It takes a little bit of time, but for, the way I looked at it was if we're on track to go to a new facility anyways, it really didn't make sense to, and I was trying to find some savings some places.
And the tablets that you're using, those are all wireless?
The tablets in the cruisers use cellular network to,
So they're not impacted by your,
they're not impacted by the department internet access. We have here a home speed internet, if you will, under the old, way back,
right?
I can't even think of the name of the Adelphia setup. And they just transferred us over company-wise, but they never, I mean, I think now if I saw the ad, they're 200 megabits per second or something. 200 is the speed now that they're doing businesses at. But we're still at the 50, and it's,
Can I make a comment on computers and communication? I want my police officers to be safe out there. We have radio problems. They need to have information, especially about the bad guys, and there are bad guys out there. It's going to be a period of years before we're in the new facility. I appreciate the chief saving money, but I'm a little bit concerned.
So you want to change something here? Board, I'm confused. You want to
On-
not drop the faster internet?
No, on the internet, for example, I'd have no problem, I don't want to say getting the Mack truck category or the Cadillac. Do you understand where I'm coming from, Chief?
yeah, I think so.
How much money would we be talking about, or would you have to go back to refigure it?
I have to go back to figure it.
I mean, are we talking $10,000-$20,000?
To add that?
Yes.
No, it's a couple $1,000. It's,
What are we adding? I'm not clear.
to add this high-speed internet would be a couple $100 a month, but it's
Well, you're going back to 9140
essentially about that, yes.
versus 6120.
So $3,000.
So it's $3,000.
I
just tossed that out for discussion among the board members.
I mean, how much of your, I don't have your numbers here, they're somewhere here. How much of your 200 incidences that you've done require internet activity?
Well, they all do to some degree because we enter them through our computers either in the field or here.
But I mean critical internet capacity.
Anything that we take photos, which would be probably, let's say a third, I guess. But then it also comes back it also comes back the other way if we go to print them, because we have to download them to print them. But I just saw that as something we could cut to make up. I know it's going up, so I'm trying to. I don't think that's. But. I mean,
So I guess the central question here is, does the existing slower internet speed adversely affect safety or your ability
I don't think
to-
it affects safety.
or your ability to do
Maybe
your job
efficiency, but not safety.
correctly?
And it's, we've already got, some other stuff that, like, for example, I put in new antenna at the fire station, to reduce dead spots. Originally, I thought I had to add more to that line, but instead it was, I just have to reprogram my computers once my phones,
Mhm.
my radios, once that's done. And, I just don't,
Well, you're looking at the difference between a 4.2% increase and a 4.8% increase.
I don't see that as a safety issue, it's more of an efficiency. It can be a bit of we have to upload and download our reports. Download isn't the problem, it's uploading the photos, so maybe
Uploading to whom?
to the county server.
Okay.
So that's the biggest drawback, is our upload speed is fairly slow for photos, if we're doing a bunch of photos in a batch. But it's not, basically what I was trying to do before was just get us a business level, because we're at a home level, the standard business one.
Right.
I don't see it as a safety thing, more as a convenience thing. So that's why I was willing to drop it, especially since we're gonna be going to, hopefully in a few years, a new building, which will have to, because it will be a new facility, will have the new baseline, high speed that they do. They don't offer what we have now. Even for residents, don't get offered this level.
And they won't upgrade us.
They will for a fee.
Yeah.
That's what that's about, is they will upgrade us, but it'll be cost. So it's like,
So you're on a grandfathered rate right now.
exactly, we're grandfathered, and we would be paying a business rate and get business speed. But even the residential rate, I don't know what the residential rate, but the residential speed is faster than what we have here, but.
And we're paying the same rate.
Yeah, we're essentially right now, you're paying the rate and I'm sharing it with you versus I was gonna get the higher speed just from me, if you will, but it was not, I don't know, I just don't think
All
it's a,
right, let's work our way through this. We're getting
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
this. What do you want to do? Do you want
Table it.
to, you sure?
Yes.
Okay, because we're not voting on this budget today, are we? Or are we?
Well, I'm prepared to vote on it.
I'm not.
You're not?
So,
No.
Okay. All right. Telephone is down $3,000. Why is that?
that was the fast internet.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
I included that under the telephone.
Office equipment's up $5,000.
Yeah, we're gonna be up, we have to get a new firewall and I also have to get computer support. In talking with Diane and Karen, it's hard to split out the hours for Tom to figure out who's got how much, so it was recommended I put some in my budget, because they're gonna have some in their budget, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
that's what Diane told me, is to put some in my budget this year.
I thought we were carrying all the
We
computer
were
support
gonna
for the
double
town.
ours, that's what I thought.
Computer support for the town and the administrative lines.
Okay,
That's how
well,
I
then you can
understood
take
it.
about 2,000 out of there then.
Yeah, that's how I understood it too.
Yeah, because I think ultimately our goal, or one of my goals would be to maybe even create another budget, which includes all of our computer.
I included about 2,000 for that, because I was told it was going up and I needed to,
I don't know where that came
That's-
from.
Okay, so if we move 2,000 out of there, we're,
When it comes to computers, you have it in two different lines, correct? Something to do with computers is in two different lines, correct?
3.
well, yeah, the internet is one spot, but that's, the town's
That's
got
a
that.
service, yeah.
It's a service. We do have office equipment, includes some of it, and new equipment, because that's a one-time type purchase. A lot of things that are one-time deals I do under the new equipment banner, if you will. So yes, as a lot of things, there's a lot, sometimes they touch more than one line sometimes. But if it's a one-time deal, I put it into new equipment.
I like the idea of, and I use the word global, when it comes to computer costs. Put them under one budget. I mean, he doesn't pay for mowing around the police station or shoveling snow.
No, I'm in favor of having some kind of organization around the computer issues, because it's hard for me to remember who's got what. And, the police department has some, the office has some. I mean, now we have it at the transfer station. I just offered it to the cemetery trustees.
Yes. Well, I like,
It's-
that in correspondence, Tom has talked about, through his office, about used equipment, and there's a small warranty on it, and there's a nice summary of headed in the direction that you
Yeah,
talked
but I mean,
about.
we can't buy the cheap used equipment, that's not gonna happen.
No, I'm not saying used.
But
I like where
it might-
Tom was coming from.
It might be a good thing for like the Conservation
Yes.
Commission or whatever. But we aren't gonna change that this year, I don't believe.
Well, then we gotta go back and pull strings out of some budgets that are already on the budget committee, so.
Right. So I think we maybe should make that effort in 2020
Okay.
and create a budget. I mean, it'll make it a little confusing for a couple of years, trying to track it, but at any rate, so you're gonna pull $2,000 out of the office?
Office, yep.
Okay. And you've got another big jump in repairs, and that's,
Just been, we've already spent
excuse me,
almost 700 more, and we still have, so I have to get at least one set of tires.
yeah,
And I've got one in the shop right now, and if we do the oil undercoating, I mean, it's all gonna add up. I'm just thinking we're gonna be close to the 10.6 is where
are
we're gonna get you.
we buying a cruiser this year,
Next year we are, yes.
2020?
2020,
We are,
yes.
so we're eliminating,
Well, hopefully, I'll say hopefully.
okay, well, let's assume that we are.
Yeah,
Are the repairs we're currently doing needed 100%, or are we getting rid of one of those cruisers?
I would say they were needed, yeah.
I mean, I want you, let's say you have 4 cruisers, and you're gonna have 4 cruisers at the end of next year.
I was hoping at 5, but
Or, let's say 5.
I was hoping to
right?
keep the old one as a
Okay.
spare, because we've had some shortages when we've had to jockey.
All right, I just don't wanna make the oldest cruiser new, and then buy a new cruiser.
Oh, it's
And
been-
get rid of it, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I hear what you're saying. I'm doing the maintenance that's on this maintenance schedule, this recommended maintenance what I'm doing. And stuff like the brakes. There's a problem with the brakes. With 2 of the vehicles I did the brakes on, that was very pricey.
Can you supply the Board of Selectmen with a list of work that has been done this year? And
Yes,
needs-
sure.
And needs to be done?
Yeah, you're already $1,000 over budget on that line, let's say. So, how much more than 1,000 over are you gonna be at the end of the year?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I want to be close to that.
10
I've
grand?
got one in the shop right now, because I had, the axle was leaking, and that's one that we're gonna be keeping for another theoretically 5-6 years.
Right.
So,
Is that the Ford?
It's
yes,
got an axle leak, and how old is it?
3 years.
And there's no powertrain on that
Not
anymore?
for that, I don't believe.
I certainly wanna check.
Yeah.
How many miles on it?
60?
Yeah,
That's
check
another
with the
thing.
dealer.
That's another thing is, could you please give us the mileage figures when you have an opportunity?
Okay.
And do they offer you any extended warranties on these?
There are offers, they're very pricey nowadays compared to what they used to be. It used to be fairly cheap. When we buy a cruiser, like 13,000, you add 1,000, you get a 100,000 mile warranty. Now they want like almost 3,000, I think, 2,500 for the extended
Well, it
warranty.
depends, and there's powertrain and then there's more expensive.
I will check into it.
I mean, I'm just worried, if you got a 3-year-old vehicle with an axle leak, I'm concerned about it.
Yeah,
I mean, let's bring the dealer in here
Yeah.
and figure out what the hell's going on. Because that's too young. I mean, if it was sitting there with 150,000 miles on it, it was 4 years old, that's one thing.
yeah.
But 60,000.
I'll check on it. So
And what's the estimate to repair it?
it was around $200.
Yeah. 200 here, 200 there, pretty soon you're talking coffee money.
Yeah.
Yeah, on
Well, that
vehicle,
particular vehicle has had a series of ongoing issues.
What model is it?
It's the police interceptor SUV. It's had several recalls, several times it broke down that were covered. But
Yeah, but even if it's
I would
covered,
make
it's
it
out
out
of,
buy one again.
even if it's covered, it's out of service when it's not like your car that they give you a loaner, right? You take it,
Get a police
you
car
take
line?
it, right, yeah, right.
It's
I'll
out.
take one of those.
Yeah.
All right.
when we talk about vehicles, I have some questions.
Okay.
Is there money in the budget to do the rust work on the pickup truck?
No. He's already $1,000 over budget.
Okay. Things like undercoating, can we, let's say you have some money left over, can we encumber if we have it in writing? Just a thought.
Well, that's what I said, if I do all these things, I'm gonna be back up around the 10.6.
Right, but you only spent so far 331,000. I know you've got payroll and
Right,
a number of other things.
Right, no, I'm tracking that, I'm seeing where I'm sitting
So,
on another spreadsheet I got with my budget, so. Plus we're
based
talking-
based on what we're looking at in front of us here, I suspect that there is sufficient money in your overall budget to get the rust proofing and the rust repair and all that kind of stuff done.
That's
on
my
these
plan for
vehicles,
this
right?
year.
Yeah.
And it will be my preference that we get it done rather than having to encumber the funds to do it after the
You
turn of
can't
the
do it
year.
in the middle of the winter, it just
Yeah.
doesn't
I
work.
support you there.
So,
Yeah, wet time in the middle of winter.
Rust proofing.
Yeah, no, my plan is,
And I'm not a
I'm
real
glad to
fan
hear
of
about
rust.
Tice's, I think that's local, it's not too far
My
away.
family's used them.
Yeah,
At any rate,
I have a thing with cruisers. We had 3 officers this year
yeah,
that didn't put some miles on the cruiser. Abby had 8 months she wasn't driving, right?
yes,
What about Carl? When did he leave?
he left the year before. Abby was his replacement.
Right, and when did he leave?
2017.
No, what month?
2018.
September.
It was like August, September.
A little over a year ago.
So there's what, 3 or 4 months that he didn't drive, right?
Right,
A cruiser. And Tom was out for a while. What
that was
that?
2017,
Right.
2018.
That was 3 months that, or 4 months that he didn't drive a cruiser, right?
Yeah,
My comment is, when it comes to cruisers, that right there is 16 months of driving our police department didn't do. So that,
so
there-
you want a
we
bigger
didn't,
fuel bill or?
well, we didn't put the normal miles on
Right.
the cruisers. And I'm thinking twice about a new cruiser.
Oh, I see.
well,
Just gotta be honest about it.
well, I would observe that on the regular replacement schedule that we've run, we would have
we
replaced
did
one
extend
in
it 1
20
year.
in
Yeah.
2019, so we've already pushed off a year.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Pushed him last year. And we asked him to get pushed for the sake of the library, as I remember.
Yes.
So I'm not sure, I mean, I'd be more, I thought you were going into the fuel cost arena or some other thing where if we haven't used the cruisers, then maybe our costs are gonna be a little higher than the chief has proposed. So is the sticking point aside, I mean, that's a warrant article issue, it's not a
Yes, it
budget
is.
issue. So is your sticking point on this budget that you feel the internet speed should be higher?
I would consider it, because it's a safety issue with the officers.
Okay, so,
But I'd be willing to wait until all the budget is in.
That's your opinion. The
Yes.
chief doesn't feel that it's a safety issue.
Right, but I don't-
Because it's only in the office that it
Right.
affects, not in the cruisers.
Well, yes.
okay, so you're gonna have to bring this back in budget form anyway. You have to make the changes as far as the
The computers, yes.
computers
Yep.
are concerned. And,
I have a couple more questions.
oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could we please turn to page 2? And I'm looking at page 2, which is grades and steps, and then I'm looking at page 3, which is salary calculations. 2412 is 4703, correct? That's what I have on
Yes,
the sheet. The next one is the sergeant, 1813 is 35.8. That matches up.
mhm,
The next one, MPO, 1611. As I go to the next page, MPO 1 is 30.08. And I go to the chart,
It's 3121.
and it's 3060, or is it 3121?
Well, that's the 11, it's 3121.
Okay, so MPO 1,
3121,
on page 3, that
Oh,
6.08.
10 is 36.
I gotta change that, okay.
36.
Okay.
Yep, 1611, so 16,
Yes. Now, PP,
11, 3121, okay, I'll fix that.
thank you. PPO is,
13.6.
Probationary patrol officer.
and what's the 4?
So, right now, that's
13.35.
probationary, it's 13.6 is where Officer Gillis is now,
Okay.
How long is she on probation?
till February.
So
In
that's not
February,
gonna last very long, is it?
well, she has been on probation for a year,
Yeah, I know.
so she
What I'm
comes.
saying is that you can't base her pay on that, because.
That's what I did. That's what I did is I did 2 months. I did 4 weeks, 4 weeks at that, and then I presume she's gonna finish her probationary period and be moved to police officer, which becomes 14.4, which is what that's why it shows that 4 weeks at one, 48 at the other.
Okay.
And 2 holidays at one rate, 10 at the other. Does that make sense?
2442,
Is-
it says PPO 20,
13.6.
on page 3, 24.
Yes, 2442 is what, yep, it's,
And that's pay grade 14, step 4.
no, that's 13.6. February, theoretically, she should go to 14, which is not probationary officer anymore, it's police officer.
Mhm.
And the closest one to that is is level 4, which is 2464.
Thank you. Part-time officers, what pay grade or what range of steps do you anticipate fitting into the budget?
I think I put them down at, they did that at 2464. I think I did the same as what Officer Gillis was getting. I know it says 2262, but I think I put it at, I threw the numbers.
Grade 9, step 12 is 2262. I don't know, unless there's another 2262 somewhere.
It would have, I think when I actually did the calculations in the last 2 pages, so again, that was an artifact from when I did it last year. This is, when I did the last 2 pages, I believe I did it for close to the 2464. For the part-time officers, the same as,
Pay grade and what step?
that would be 14.4.
2464,
Yeah.
Yes.
14. Is that the going rate in the county?
It bounces around. I know FAM is hiring at 25. So,
I support
some
the,
are short, some are a little less, some a little, that was probably on the higher end, but it's hard to attract people, so that's why they did it, so they could try and get some help. But, and that's kind of a separate, we wanted that shown separate, so I did that separate, so even though it shows up there, I left, there's 0 hours down there.
Under overtime, the selectmen listed a number of items that involve dedicated officer.
And I turned in something a while back
And
showing.
where is that in your budget?
I didn't because that was supposed to be, I was asked to turn in something with, as if we were hiring out everybody to do it, and I don't have, special duty is a different section, it's not in my budget.
Where is it?
It's a revolving fund.
I know, but where is it reflected in the budget?
Special duty is not reflected in my budget, it's a revolving fund in the town's budget. It's got like,
Well, for example, you hire,
$4,100 in it.
you
But
hire,
that's an in and out, that's not on the budget.
Right.
Right? But for the town to budget to spend additional money to have coverage for these things, we have to put it someplace.
Right.
And that's what I did. I spelled out that as to whose lines I would go against. In other words, if Parks and Recs is hosting something, right? then I can't, because you'd said, even if we have to hire somebody from Wolfboro,
Right.
that would be, I would assume, Parks and Rec would be hiring somebody from paying that detail rate.
It's not my understanding. That's
Yeah,
not my
I-
understanding of the conversation.
Well, I didn't want to totally exempt our police force from
No, but
participation.
worst case scenario, that's what it would,
Well, worst case scenario, that's what happens.
Right.
I can appreciate that. But no, it has to be, you have to be involved somehow. I'm not gonna have our Parks and Rec director making phone calls to get it.
no,
That's
I
not
will,
gonna
I will
happen.
do that, just like when Wolfboro called last week, or called the other day saying, we don't have somebody for Tuesday.
Right.
And no, I certainly would fill it here first, but if we don't, that's how, you know, that's how it's worked. Like when we helped out with the drug take back that they do, separate from the drug take back, we billed the hazardous waste.
Well, let's
collection.
assume right now that today or tomorrow, there's a beer fest at 19 Mile Bay on the ice.
Yep,
And you inform Dennis that you don't have coverage for that, for whatever reason. Everybody's in court or nobody wants to work. But inclusive in that sentence, I have to have understanding that you're gonna say, I don't have an officer, I'll get you an officer, this is what it's gonna cost. And now we'll talk to Dennis about putting something on his budget to cover.
and that's
this.
what I split that out as in that other, I did it a while ago, didn't I?
I have it here.
Do you?
And that's,
Concerts, town meeting, election, well, elections you gotta cover. I'm not paying extra for elections. Transfer station. So you know what's, there's 70, no, okay. All right, so we need a longer chat about this, don't
Okay.
we? We really do. The concerts, I appreciate, it's a new thing, and they've got some money to handle what they need to handle. Town meeting, you don't have an option, we gotta have an officer there. We gotta have somebody there.
Mhm.
And elections, once again, I think we're required to have a police officer.
Yes, we are.
At elections. So that 4,500 plus 375, so 4,875 is, of this 75 is already in here, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
The 1,500 for the concerts.
So, and if you, in order to cover them, need to schedule an additional officer beside the guy that's out patrolling, then it probably goes in your overtime budget to do it,
Yes.
okay?
So we need, yeah, so
So
we wanna
we-
make sure you got your budget, you know, this, we're not voting on this today.
Yeah.
So if we come to.
I was told, assume you had to hire somebody for all these things, that's what I did.
Okay, and you're figuring that yeah, I appreciate that.
That's what I did, I did what,
Right, you
I
did
followed
what
to
you-
a T what I was told.
Right, so
Maybe
that's
that wasn't
75
communicated right,
overrides.
but and that's why I was kind of surprised, because like, but town meeting should be one of us there. Town voting should be one of us there.
Right.
$3,000 of this is in the air, as far as I'm concerned. 4,500 of it is already in your budget. You're gonna be at the election, you're gonna be at the town meeting. Those are.
It is.
Provided nothing else more
Well,
critical comes up, that's
and-
the
and
thing that
it's-
happens.
Just a minute, time out.
All right.
When it comes to an election, I am not in favor of what happened last year. A guy comes with a gun complaint, and where's the police officer?
Yeah.
It cannot happen again. That's Lloyd Wood speaking.
No, and I think we take your point, and I think we made our point to the chief last year about that. Given that, I think what we need to do is make sure that you've got enough in your budget to
Correct.
cover
Correct.
the $3,500 that
My,
we-
and my thinking on how do you make sure we have a police officer at the polls is you schedule an extra officer besides whoever's on the regular duty rotation, because that way, if there's an accident someplace or an incident or whatever, you still got the guy
Right.
the individual that's at the
And they gotta have
polls.
some flexibility. We've got 4 elections this year.
I know,
You know, it's just,
that's how I calculated it.
Yeah,
And we need to make sure the resources are in your budget.
right. Yeah, so take your budget home with you and make sure that you're okay with this, because I'm only taking, and I'm the only one guy, but I'm only taking $3,000 out of this number as exempt
as,
from your budget.
as goes someplace else, yeah.
Right.
Would you please add something to that?
What's that?
What would it cost to provide some type of service where an officer is at the school blinking lights 182 days a year?
Well, they're down there. I see them. I saw Tom this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
I'm there when
down.
we can. I mean, the problem with that is we're talking a half hour when it's on each day and night.
Well, for example, Chief,
Yeah,
I don't want to be RSA 105 or anything like that you made comments to.
yeah.
But what if an individual were hired to come in a little early in the morning and do radar around town, and then does the blinking light at the school, and then signs off for the day? You know, I'm wondering if we can be a little creative and kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Please just think about it.
Okay.
We have kids walking.
All right, so we've got, and thank God they are, and I hope it's uphill both ways. So, are we at, do we have an understanding about what you're gonna cover and what we're gonna push on to other places?
So here's the thing, like election, we only have so many people,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And we have someone who has a serious health issue in their family. We have other people that have other conflicts that come up. We have, when you take in elections, for example, they go 8 to almost midnight. You know, so we're talking, that's 2 people to cover that, not just to cover patrol. So that would be, to essentially do that, we would need 4 people. Just to cover, assuming nobody has any, needs to take any, has any issues with showing up that day. Because we need 1 cover patrol, 1 at the polls.
Yeah, the polls are only open till 7. I mean,
But the counting goes
the
on
counting
till,
goes on.
and we have
We
to
don't-
run the,
Yes, we don't need, in my opinion, and having been involved in counting for a long time, we don't need a police officer present the whole time while we're counting. They
Okay.
do have to be there to take ballots down to wherever they go and that sort of thing. But in terms of the continuous coverage and to speak to the issues with respect to incidents that might come up, I think it's during open hours at the polls is
Okay.
when we've got to make sure we have
And the,
that.
the 4 elections that we have coming up in 2020 are on the calendar, so we know exactly what day they are.
oh yeah.
So we've got plenty of time between
Well, I don't
now
think they-
and the
Yeah.
first one.
Presidential primaries on, yeah.
They're talking February 11th, maybe.
They've been
Maybe.
talking,
It's not
right,
even
they've been
set.
talking about that for a long time, but it hasn't been set yet and won't be set until,
Yeah.
you know,
At any rate,
late in the game because they
let's
don't want
say
to
that
to
we've
get in
got 1
there.
election that's in the air, but the other 3 are pretty well set. One of them is definitely set in November. So we've got plenty of time. If we can't make the schedule work with the officers that we have, then let's start making phone calls. Who can we hire on for a part-time on those particular days? And let's make sure we have the money in our budget to do that.
Bingo.
I mean, you may feel as though it's not an easy thing to do, but this is something that we need to have done.
Okay.
And if you can't, you need to tell us why it can't happen, but I'm sure you
Well, I guess
can
I'm
make
not
that.
clear what you mean by hiring somebody on, because I kind of did that with this. You said not to do it that way, so.
No,
Do you need to have them, do you need to have them in our uniform or?
No, I don't care if they come in with,
Okay, that's what I was
as long as
asking.
they don't look like Massachusetts State Troopers,
No,
I'm
no.
okay. And no jackbooted thugs here. But no, anybody, if you have somebody from the sheriff, if it's a duty officer, that's fine, if that's the way we have to do it. I would rather have our people at the polls.
I would too.
And somebody else driving out there
Okay.
doing traffic. I mean, that's my preference, but
I support that.
I think we need to know that
Yes.
going forward, we're gonna have somebody at the polls all day. and then however you wanna structure going out. I mean, you're working on a really tight budget, I appreciate the number, but I'm willing to, and I think everybody's gonna have to be willing to do a little
Absolutely.
bit.
Yes.
We're not asking you to cut out a cruiser to make sure we got coverage at the poles. We're asking you to give us a reasonable number for those 4 days.
Yeah, I
We're
just,
looking at that as a plus up to your budget from where you've been.
again, to me, it wasn't necessarily, the overtime wasn't the issue for covering the polls. It's
People,
number of people I have.
No.
So.
I mean, that's
we support
part
that.
of why I asked for another full-time officers, so I can be able to support more
well,
of these
then,
things that are being asked.
this is this first step towards that. When we can look at the 2020 expenses and say, okay, in order to affect what you just got town of Tuftonboro for police service, it costs us this much extra in people coming in on duties. This is why we need a 5th officer. You know, we can actually, it's not just chief of police deciding he wants a larger department, it's actual.
So that's why I put it in, because last summer we were down to, what, 11, 13% availability. But that wasn't even a good picture of the availability, because a lot of that was, our patrol time was spent driving to all our places people wanted checked. So we never really had a lot of time to sit and patrol, if you will.
Let me make it clear.
Yeah,
I understand patrol
yeah,
is the backbone of a police department, and I am willing to fund it.
yeah.
I'm also intelligent enough to know, and you've talked about it, is when your guys ain't out there running radar and slowing the traffic down and checking licenses, they aren't catching the people who are drunk, operating without without a license, operating after suspension, or other things. And yes, the police department is multitasked, but when that patrol officer is following up on a case, yes, he's doing the best that he can. I support patrol function. And if we need to hire a detective or need to hire other individuals, I'll put it in the budget.
Okay, so we,
I have other questions.
okay, go ahead.
Is there a possibility of you adding administration hours? When one person is out, you're kind of stuck. You're stuck doing it, right?
Essentially, we're stuck doing it, yes.
Okay, just a thought. Doesn't it, I like his comment that although he uses the plane crash analogy, your administrative assistant doing a great job is out. There's someone there that can help out the officers, right?
Let's see what I can do about that.
Well, yeah, if there's a need, fill it. If there's not a need, I don't want to create a larger job just to pay somebody more money.
Well, it goes back, I think, also to space and availability. It's one of the hesitancies of adding the full-time officer was our space that we have, and similar with, you know, anyway, I will look at that.
In your budget, can you separate the on-call hours and pay? Is that done?
It was done on one of the sheets. Yeah, right here.
Got on call,
Okay.
On call is
What
11,648.
page?
Page 3.
3,
Okay, I missed that.
56.
It's 56 hours a week that we don't cover, so it's $11,648. It often comes in less than that, because every call-out we have goes against overtime, not against on-call.
Okay. The other thing is, would you reconsider sending your firearms out to occasionally be checked by the company that made them?
I don't
Or
think-
you against that?
One, I don't think Glock offers that per se. We have instructors, we have people that are qualified to do it here, and sending them out means we have to buy more to have while they're sent out, and we technically qualify by serial number, so I think it'd be expensive to start up, and I really don't see a gain to it. We don't have them. As I said before, we don't fire that much through them that they're at a point. They're very reliable guns. They're not at a point where we don't get them to that point. Because by the time their night vision is getting weaker, we can almost trade them in. We can trade them in for about the same cost as new night sights put on. So it's, you know, it's they give us a good deal on them, so they don't get that old. Ours are a year old, they're almost 2 years old now, yes. No, they're almost a year old. They're not. They're
We
not.
have an armor.
We have armor, I mean, we have people that are very qualified to do it, and I don't think Glock offers it anyways as a service. I mean, maybe other companies do. I know SIG does. SIG,
Is this still in Germany?
who, Glock? No, they're in Georgia. Florida.
That's true.
Okay, under page 6.
Yes.
For uniforms, is there a total for part-time? I see it blank.
No, that's over here on these other sheets,
The ones that are on the back.
on the back.
So part-time officers are not in your overall budget, they're just.
Right, I took that out, I took the other officer out, I did them as separate sheets.
Right.
As estimates as to what it would cost to do all those things.
The last 2 pages. So you're looking at a total of $61,000 to add an officer.
Essentially, that's what I think it would cost, yes, because there'll be more fuel, more maintenance on the vehicles. You know, I'm just globally looking at everything that's gonna come up. Some more in uniforms and more in ammunition.
Is there duplication here?
How was the duplication?
Okay, additional cost for full-time officer, cost 2020. You got. a
Oh,
total-
yeah, so you wanted to know what it would cost to totally, for example, like training, we're gonna buy a pistol. We're not gonna have to buy that in 2021. But, because we buy the pistol and it's gonna be, we don't have to rebuy it, for example, when you talk. But the salary is only 6 months, so that's gonna be a full year. So there's some things, like the initial uniforms are gonna be higher, but then it's just a matter of replacement uniforms. And that's probably a little bit high on the uniforms. But my point is,
Add an officer, it's gonna cost $44,000 for 2020, and then you're talking $61,000 for 2021.
yeah,
That's not a $100,000 cost to the town.
because retirement and benefits,
It doesn't matter, it's an annual, we have an annual budget, we're zero-sum game. You have an annual budget of $44,000 for this officer, that's fine, so it
Yeah.
costs us $44,000.
right,
Next year, 2021, you got an annual cost of $61,000.
right, in my budget would be 61,000.
Right.
But when you add the retirement system and benefits, in the global town budget, it's gonna cost close to 100,000.
So you're saying the other $39,000
Associ-
goes into the
associated
other lines
costs.
of the budget?
There's other associated
Is
costs.
it,
It's 28% for retirement. Take this 51,000 and add 28% of that. And then our health insurance, depends whether it's family or not.
well, I got the health insurance numbers I'm working on.
See what I'm saying is, I mean, somebody said to me, we were talking about SROs in schools and other topics. They said it costs about 100,000 to add an officer to their department, which I think is probably about an average, a fair cost. That was a estimate, but yeah, take
So it's $14,000 worth of retirement.
add the
And
insurance,
then you've got another,
so that's up to 76,000.
Another 20K for benefits,
So this is 96,000,
36.
and that's
Right.
low.
right?
If it's a family plan, that's low.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, it adds up.
sure does.
I wanted to be upfront about all the potential
Oh, you are that.
Okay. It just wasn't
ramifications.
clear through this. I thought you were adding 2020 costs and 2021
No,
costs.
because originally I said, when I put it in my budget originally, I did 3 budgets originally, and you said, wait a minute, but what's it gonna cost us the next year afterwards, because that's only 6 months. Well, there's some things up front that are gonna cost, that we don't wanna have to buy again the next year, but the salary's gonna be for the whole year. That's gonna be the big,
So what you were looking at is you were looking at the 44 and the 61 and saying that's about 100,000 and that's where this comes from.
Right.
yeah, no,
So
no,
I was reading it wrong.
But it's, yeah,
so,
yeah. Salary, benefits and other costs.
Um,
Yep.
And you're basing the 51,000 on your current new
I
officer?
think I added 2% on that, just to assume that there's gonna be a,
Oh, right, in case the guy was going to pay them more money, right?
no, I'm assuming that there's gonna be steps the next year for that person, whoever gets hired.
All right. What else do you have there, Lloyd?
I'm intrigued by adding 2 part-time officers. It's a way of reducing costs, but it's also a way of getting officers out on the street. Is the starting pay, I'm thinking if we added a few steps to it, could you, money talks when you're recruiting people to fill in?
Yeah, sure.
Rhetoric.
Yeah, it does.
All right.
And there's-
What's your notion is if we put an RFP out on the street for people that might be interested in becoming part-time police
Well, I couldn't
officers?
do it until the next, after town meeting anyways. Right.
Well, you can start the process earlier.
Yeah, you can do some interviewing. I
Contingent
mean, I
upon
don't
town
know,
meeting.
honestly, I don't know.
For
how-
example, I think it makes sense to have, hire a part-time officer or a couple and say, tell you what, we have a couple of issues, speeding cars in the morning, and Woodward keeps talking about the school. Tell you what, come out at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, run radar, do the school, go home.
Are,
Other towns do it that way.
okay, but you're limiting yourself to fully trained police officers at that juncture. We don't want to spend the kind of money we spent on a full-time officer in a training setting for a part-time officer.
Well, what if we get an off-duty officer that moonlights?
Are they out there? I mean, I don't know, Lloyd, I really don't.
I'm asking that question.
There's some, I mean, the reason we're getting called by Wolfboro to help with details is because they can't fill all their details in overtime that they've got, so, I think
And
that's,
there's 3% unemployment.
it's tough to find them.
Right.
It's possible, but it's tough. I mean, it'll be, I don't know, I presumed, just so it's clear too, the part-time officers, they weren't certified, but it's gonna have to send them to the academy,
Right.
part-time academy.
And so that's a whole nother way of approaching this. If we're gonna take, John Smith off the street and create a part-time officer, what's the cost to create that part-time officer? It's virtually the same as creating a full-time officer.
Yeah, very close, yes.
So you haven't saved anything, and now you've got a part-time officer that,
It's fewer hours. I presume they weren't gonna work as many hours as a full-time officer.
So,
but you
but
spend all that money.
the
What
biggest
happens when they-
issue is, if somebody wants to be a police officer, do they want to be a part-time officer, or do they want to be a full-time officer?
Right.
And,
It's,
and,
it's
so
not easy to find them any which way. I think I just saw Manchester did a testing this weekend. They ended up with like 11. And I think that's how many did just the written and physical test. When it was all said and done, they've got like 10 openings. So they're not gonna fill them all, obviously, from that testing process. So it's very competitive, very hard to find people. I mean, we took a
Yeah,
lot.
I would sooner think we'd be better served looking at our base pay, and does that work?
And with part-time officers, the advantage is you save money, the disadvantage is you're not their main bread and butter, if you will, you gotta accept that. They're gonna have to work when they can work, and
Yeah, living.
they're gonna make a living, and they gotta, if they work in another town full-time, if they're opening an overtime shift there, it goes towards their retirement, and there's a lot of benefits for them versus working extra shift here.
Which doesn't adhere to the.
It doesn't add to their benefit, their retirement benefits. It's not an easy, it's not to say you can't find someone, but it's gonna be in there when it's available for them.
In a perfect world, we get part-time officers, because.
20 years ago, you could do that. Just nowadays, it's just not that many people.
Well, even with, I don't think it's available because of the amount of training that's involved. I mean, whoever it is, if they're not trained, you're asking them to take a 5-month journey at the police academy.
For part-time, it's Wednesday night is video-based training, if you will. You have to go to the academy or one other location, and then Saturday is training. So they try and make it around what other people could work. So for part-time academy, it's Wednesday night for a few hours, Saturday all day. So it's not quite as, but it's also spread out over a fairly lengthy period of time though, because you have to, and it's not as many hours as the full-time academy, it's shorter. Which is always a question, how they can be as well trained.
Yeah, and then we're stepping into another box, which is, you know, what are our expectations of our police force? And you put someone that's less trained out in the field, what happens to our, I don't know, our liability insurance?
Well, it's covered, we're covered, but obviously they will still expect us to follow through with
Yeah.
our own training here too, to make sure up to the standards. I mean, there is,
Excuse me.
yeah, it's an interesting,
I'd rather have it filled with detail this year personally, just so we get an idea of what the, we've asked the chief to accomplish certain things here with that list. Now he's gonna go and accomplish them. And now we can look at it objectively in October, November of next year and say, okay, this is what it costs. This is the service that we got. This is where he fell down. And I'm sure he's gonna fall down somewhere. Why he fell down. And we can start making a more reasonable appraisal of what we're gonna do going forward.
so, yeah.
I haven't made my mind up, but those are the things that need to get done. We just need to have them. However it happens, it happens. Parks and Recs, that's another. So, don't worry too much about that.
So,
Police budget's always the worst one. Have you noticed that?
okay,
So you're gonna change your numbers anyway, because you've got the internet issue, which isn't.
I already took that out,
You've got the,
the office.
right.
And I also have to do the salary thing, I thank you Lloyd for finding that
Right.
typo.
And work up your overtime numbers so you've got the right number to cover that portion. I'd have you put another line in there, but I don't think Diane
No, I don't need to, I just added on to the overtime,
will.
if you will, but.
And I'll defend that line for you at the budget committee. I don't, okay, you don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about getting it approved, but I'll do the defending, because we're doing the demanding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else, chief?
No.
We could waterboard you, we've got a little time left.
You could.
Do we have anything else for the chief?
I don't.
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, chief.
Have a good day, sir.
Thanks.
Can we get Diane? Yep. Yeah. We finished our insurance probe, and I'm gonna have Diane walk you through it, but we've got two choices. One's a $13,972 increase, and the other's a $3,554 increase. So neither one of them is over 7%, I think it's under 6. But the lower increase is a higher copay on the prescription drug end, but the medical end is the same as we've had. We looked at 15 different insurance packages from 4 different companies. And Tom Young had recommended Concord Group as the group he uses to get health insurance. And after they looked at what we have and they looked out in the marketplace, their recommendation was to stay where we are with adjustments and single-digit increase. I mean, I think it's pretty Easy to figure. Here she is.
There's,
So this is mine,
yes,
but the back pages are yours.
except, well, this is yours, this is just backup
Okay.
that you asked for.
Yep.
And I went online, I'm back on the Health Trust website, and I did finally find for the sites of service plan, where we could,
Did you get a map?
yeah. I think I left it over here.
Excuse me.
Oh, great, thank you.
And here it is, right here. It gives you a map to labs, which is what this is, and then the other map is for outpatient surgery, and that includes, dental, ear, nose, gastrology, general, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last one is just frequently asked questions.
So,
If you wanted to go with the site of service plan.
yeah, but it's, I mean,
And this is radiology providers in the site of service plan.
where
So it's
do
all
I
in
do- where do I
different-
go for just a general checkup?
Let's say if you wanted, that would be, that's something that's considered preventative. And
Uh-huh.
presumably, all of your preventative services should be no charge. Now, if you need some blood tests or something like that,
Yeah,
if you don't want to pay or get stuck paying for any of it, you need to go to one of those lab
This is under the site of
listed.
service plan.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
so, just so we're clear on the, site of service, there's no, no one in Carroll County.
I haven't seen any. The closest would be Portsmouth,
Vermont.
Laconia,
Summersville.
depending on what
Okay,
services you're
so
looking for.
the, you can look at that.
Well, I was familiar with it last year, and
Yeah,
it sounds like
It
it hasn't
hasn't
changed.
changed, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So this-
it's a great program in the
It is.
higher population density areas of the state where people have access to providers.
Right.
It, in some cases, might mean that an individual would have to, instead of going to this provider, have to go across town to a different one. But here, it's, if you're participating in that program, you gotta go to Belknap County or Merrimack County or.
There's even
so-
Massachusetts,
So, it's,
Andover, and,
yeah, it isn't real practical for,
So just to give you a quick rundown on this, if we were to, for instance, go to Harvard Pilgrim, in order to get into the same area of savings, that's the last one on the top column, a $5,000 increase, we have to push our maximum out of pocket and co-insurance from 70 up to 7,900 and 15,800. The site of service plans, we can't we're limited to the amount of copay that we can pay.
Yeah, we can only, employers are only allowed to pay half
Right,
of the co-pays. So if the deductible, let's say the deductible per person is $1,000 per year, then the town can only contribute $500 into an HRA.
right.
Huggins is none here.
No, it's not.
We don't have any of that. So we do
Memorial
have
Hospital is in-
the current health plan 2020, Access Blue New England, 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, with a cost increase of $13,972, which is about 7%. Just below that is current plan 2020 Access Blue New England with a more expensive drug or prescription drug plan, and that has a total increase of $3,554. I think you've got,
Right down here, you're looking for the prescription?
yeah,
Right here.
okay, so what we currently have,
What we currently have is this for
yeah,
prescriptions.
is a 10, 20, 45, so $10 for
Generic.
generic, $20 for something a little better than that, and 45 for,
Non-formulary, yeah.
yeah, big time drugs.
And
And
then the change to reduce them to,
the change would be $10 for generic, which is no change, 25, which is $5 more for the middle of the road, $40, which is down. What's the M?
that's
Oh,
for
mail-in.
mail-in.
And this has a mail-in option. So
Just like the other, just like this one does.
Yeah.
Okay.
10, 40, and 70 for the same drug categories. Visit copay is $15, same on both plans. Specialty visit copay is $40, walk-in center is $15. Urgent care is $125 because it's urgent, you don't want to pay it. Emergency room copay is $250 because if you're in the emergency room, you really need some help. And then chiropractic, therapy, durable medical equipment, all of that is essentially the same. X-rays are zero. Labs, yeah, you have to know that one. You pay zero, and the maximum out of pocket is 5,000. 10,000, which is medical and RX expenses combined. So my recommendation and Diane's recommendation is that we go with the current plan with the adjusted,
This one here?
yeah,
Yeah.
adjusted prescription drug plan.
This would allow the employer to continue contributing to the IRA as it presently does.
The HRA.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you were to choose the other plans, they would be restricted
Right.
and have to reduce your HRA.
Mhm.
Yeah. Granite Group wrote a letter stating that they looked at all the different policies that I had provided them,
Right.
as you see before you today, and they recommended that we continue with what we have.
Right.
Let's see here. Let's see here.
It's somewhere. Up here
Oh,
on the
it's
last
in here.
bit.
It's in here.
Couple pages, huh?
Too many files. Okay, so Granite Group wrote, please see attached spreadsheet comparing your current plan renewal to Harvard's most similar plan. As you can see, your current plan is a much richer plan with far more benefits covered in full or with much lower co-pays. In comparison, the Harvard plan has co-insurance, and a much higher out-of-pocket max. And the co-insurance almost guarantees that anyone needing care is going to hit that $7,900 max. Even though the Harvard rates are a bit lower, their plan has so much more cost shifting to the member. And then the second attachment has all the similar quotes from Harvard, and none were worthy of serious consideration. And that would be Anthem and Tufts through a different company. Our recommendation is to take advantage of the single-digit renewal increase with your current comprehensive trust plans for another year.
Okay, so we'll include that letter and I guess this spreadsheet at the budget committee.
Your recommendation is the second column titled Health Trust,
Right.
This one right here,
Bob.
this is the costs.
right here.
Current plan
Okay.
2020.
This is what we have,
So
and he's recommending that
are
we.
you ready for a motion?
I certainly am.
we,
Okay,
uh,
I'll
do
move
this
that
one,
we,
which is the same as this
I am.
one. The only difference is the prescription. This-
I will move that we renew our health insurance for another year with Health Trust under the current plan with a modified prescription option, which we call different prescription option 2, the lower part of the spreadsheet, for a total projected plan premium for the year of $311,000, $311,833, which represents a $3,555 increase from 2019.
I'll second that.
Under discussion, how much are we saving?
How much are we saving?
Yes.
$10,000.
I'd ask
Over what? Over our current plan?
Yeah.
current plan.
Okay, if
Yeah.
if we were to re-up the current plan with no discussion, we pay $10,000 more money.
Okay, couple of thoughts here. First of all, thank you. You've done a lot of work here and it's very cogent. We have 10 employees that got no pay raise. 2 more for the second year in a row didn't take any pay raise. And I extrapolated that out, and it's about $12,000 in pay raises and associated costs like retirement and FICA that we're not paying. So there's $12K that's right there. The other thing is, I noticed that we have a couple of changes of people going from family to 2-person plan. And under the old system, that's a savings of $6,648. The last thing I'll say is, our current plan is called the Bronze Plan. When an accountant sits down and figures out all the tuition to wear for us, our employees are paying about 40% of their health care already. I will support the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Diana.
Thank you, nice job. guys.
Thank
Will-
you.
When's the next budget meeting, Karen?
The 26th.
26th, so sometime between now and the 26th, we'll sit down and work out a strategy for presentation to the budget committee, because you've got a lot of paperwork in front of you, and I'd like to keep it as clear as possible.
Just a note is the retirees' premium, with the retirees' health insurance won't change either. It'll be the same policy, except the rate will be reduced. Their portion, what they pay will be reduced. However, they will be paying a little bit more in their prescription. So it's
But
a
that's,
trade-off.
they get billed separately for that.
Correct, yeah.
So they're paying for that. We're deciding on their medical insurance, but they don't get any say in that.
The other thing is they keep the same doctors. When you change policies, boy, you have to hustle because
They do have an option to take just the medical piece and not the prescription piece to save even more money. If they're not, the type that need, prescription, so they don't pay more than what they need, so, which is a
Okay.
nice option.
Thanks.
Okay.
We've done the signature file. Selectmen's update,
I will be brief.
nice.
Yep, I attended the Municipal Association Annual Conference last Wednesday and Thursday. I always find that I come back with some stuff that I need to be,
Vandally.
that helps me going forward. Tufton Borough was mentioned favorably in a couple of situations. One of the things they do is an update on the courts every year, and of course, the Supreme Court had a decision in the Deeds case last year that is significant because it upheld the approach that our ZBA took in granting the equitable waiver for some construction that had been done in the past. And that was certainly a credit to the approach that our ZBA took in dealing with it, and was affirmed by the Supreme Court. There are a number of things that were good, but let me just cut to the chase. There is, the legislature passed a bill that went into effect in July of this year that allows municipalities to aggregate power and bid it out for the total population of the municipality. It's a kind of a multi-step process to get there. I think it makes sense to entertain and move in that direction. The timeline, in my opinion, is such that we can't get it to town meeting. We'd be running at sprint speed to get to town meeting with it this year, and it's something that requires approval by the legislative body. But the first step is you set up an advisory committee to put together. I apologize, I don't have all of the verbiage in front of me, but put together basically a profile of what the town wants to do with the aggregation, and then you go to town meeting, you get approval for that, and then the governing body can go forward from there and negotiate for purchase power, much the same as we've done as part of a cooperative group for the town buildings, but it allows a much larger consumer group and has the opportunity to bring additional cost savings to residents as well. So I'll stop there.
Okay.
But
Lloyd, what do you got?
I was elected vice chairman of the TAC committee.
What?
The Lakes Region Planning and Training, the traffic.
Really? Is it payment?
Oh yeah, I eat at McDonald's on the way.
Ooh.
It's under correspondence. I spoke to Jack Widmer about this letter.
Right.
He says that we're in pretty good shape, so I'm paying my taxes today to help the
Well,
town
let's
out.
encourage everybody, we have the YouTube video going on, let's encourage everybody to pay their taxes on time. We run a tight budget, tight
Yes.
cash flow, and you need to pay your taxes. They went down, by the way, worry about that.
Yes. I was wondering if Jack had any update on the cleanups of some of the properties we've been discussing. I don't know if he's around. I'll wait for him to come in. Karen, everything worked out okay on the closing of the town due to weather? I see a form.
Yeah, I was gonna see if you folks think that's fine or not. I wanted to know if that looked okay.
The other thing is,
As long as I don't have to make a decision.
Well, that's the thing, you are the decision maker. You have to get up early
I get up early every morning.
and call like a couple people.
I have to call somebody?
That's the thing, and I don't mind if you change that, like that I call you and ask or something. That's kind of what we do sometimes, so
How did
I'm
it-
up early, so.
how did it work last year?
Well, I didn't call anybody. I know how that worked.
I think, you know, what happened is if I was really bad at home and Bill hadn't texted or called me yet, I might text Bill and say, what do you think? And particularly because Diane has to leave so early.
It's the winter, right?
Yes.
We're dealing with?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
We don't have new employees that we have to remind them that, use your judgment, that if you can't make it in or are delayed, we support that.
I did go over that with Linda, I haven't with Dennis. But,
Okay. But, if you're all set, I'm all set.
well, it's up, I guess it's really up to him because he would be the person starting the whole tree.
Okay, fine. I'll delegate it.
I'll just, let me just call you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other
Easier
thing,
that way.
the other thing I asked is, I think it's going to snow.
It is gonna snow.
It's actually snowing now.
What are we doing about the plastic grates at the beach? Is someone,
We're having a meeting.
Yeah, they're coming in,
Yeah.
I forget what day at the moment. Isn't it a Friday? No.
No, it's
I can't
like-
recall what day, but they're coming.
it's the second meeting in December, right?
It's like the 9th, I think.
Yeah, something, I forget.
Yeah, so they're coming in.
Yeah.
Now, did we ask to come up with a sign?
Sign for what?
Jack, Parsons.
Okay.
Like a warning type sign about,
Oh,
No,
yeah.
not the plow.
Prohibition to
Yeah.
plowing the,
No plowing, right.
well,
When we get a snow roller, we'll just roll it.
You know, if we wait till December 11th, the ground will be frozen to put the sign in. That's what I'm concerned with. Okay, that's it.
Jack's creative.
You ready? Okay, so everybody pay their taxes. Make sure you go about that. Parks and Rec has made a couple of decisions. One of their decisions is if we cannot move money from their revolving account towards scholarships, then I think Mrs. Gill was going to the school, and we're gonna give scholarships to the kids that wanna go to the recreational ski program. I think it's on Thursday at the grammar school. There's also a recreational
Great idea.
skating program
Yep.
that happens down at the arena. There's also equipment issues, so we allocated, I think, $1,000 for that effort, and if they need more, hopefully they'll call and they'll get more. We also want to explore the idea of if there is some local student that's in college for health medicine, sports medicine, or some athletic-related major, I think we can still scholarship those people. I mean, we just can't generally scholarship outside of the Parks and Rec arena. But we're not meeting again until January, so.
What the Alumni Association does is, I think it's over 4,000 they make available. They go through Kingswood Guidance, there's a form, and so everyone's treated the same.
Right.
Just
On that, I finally received my appointment to the Hurlburt Trust, as a nice little gold seal on it and
yes.
all that. So as soon as Attorney Sager gets back from his staycation, I'm sure we'll meet and go over that. The budget meeting I thought went pretty well. I think the health insurance that we've selected is gonna solidify some of or relieve some of their issues. You were there as well.
Yep.
Do you remember anything that I needed to?
No, I thought you handled it well.
Yeah, the police budget's gonna be a lot of conversation. I think the road budget passed, road agent's budget?
Yes.
Okay. And we still have like paving and all that kind of thing to talk to them about. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew out there in YouTube land that the Carroll County Broadband Initiative meeting is up on YouTube, according
Yes, it
to
is.
Joe Kowalski. I also had made a phone call to Russ Hilliard about an understanding, I had heard, or a rumor, I guess, on the street that the New Hampshire Electric Cooperative was not interested in participating in high-speed internet. He made a phone call based on my email to the chairman of the board of New Hampshire Electric, who he happens to know, and was able to get assurances that they'll do whatever it takes to help Carroll County Broadband in their effort to get high-speed internet into the county. The question that I had raised was, were they not gonna allow any other cabling on the poles other than Consolidated or whoever else is up there for the telephone and the cable companies? And the broadband initiative might exempt those. I mean, they should, Consolidated and those guys should get involved in this whole process, but they haven't wanted to because I think they're looking at some kind of revenue issues. But at any rate, that's ongoing. And we had one question come up about the paving that's gonna happen in North Lanark. We'll discuss that when it comes up. Because we haven't talked about. It's not yet.
Has our road agent gotten back to us with prices on tree cutting?
Not tree cutting, but I know he spoke, not that I know of, I should say, I haven't heard anything about that, but he spoke to FR Carroll about, was it Federal Corner Road, or whatever road you want, no, Dane Road you wanted to add. So he'll have all that information when he comes in for his work session for the paving part. I don't know anything about tree work.
Could you ask him? He was gonna get the 2 estimates for the possible hiring a company to come in every week and do so much work.
Excuse me, I think, thinking about the last meeting minutes, I think the way that ended, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you were gonna check with Center Harbor to see what they were paying for that. Because there was discussion about him putting an RFP out, but I think it resulted in you contacting Center Harbor, so,
I'll contact him.
okay.
Okay, Jim Cromwell from CIP wants to have a joint meeting of the Budget Committee and the Selectmen on 12/3/2019 at 6:30 PM. Hopefully we'll all be there.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And, what's the other one? Verizon is gonna come and see somebody. Well, they're not gonna see me because they're not gonna like what I have to say. But Verizon's interested in putting up a 120-foot tower on land either at the, at 69 Sodom Road,
Highway garage.
the highway garage.
Is this Mr. Yee?
Yeah,
This is Mr.
Is this the same Mr. Yee that wanted to put an antenna up behind the fire station?
yes,
Right.
yep.
Libby Museum has asked for a donation from the Hurlburt Trust. I'll take that with me to their
Oh, that's what that was for.
meeting.
Okay.
12/6 9 AM here in the town offices. We'll be meeting with Chris Fournier and Josh McAllister, who hopefully will have some bridge information for us, I think. And 12/2, Jack Parsons coming in on the plastic grates at 19 Month Bay. And the next meeting of the new Carroll County Broadband Committee will take place on December 12th in Wolfboro, at the Wolfboro Great Hall. We had a proposal also, I don't know if you guys took a look at it, on the town report. We currently pay $2,700 to Minuteman Press, and Brayshaw and Company out of West Lebanon, New Hampshire, is quoting us $21.74 for 500 copies. How many do we generally? There must be more than 500.
We normally do 500, but I'm gonna get less next year. We had too many left over.
We had them last year, right?
We have Minuteman. This is a new company that's proposing. And I didn't know if you were interested in.
Has Minuteman submitted any proposal?
No, we just, no. The answer, I mean,
All right.
we'll always go with them.
All right, fine.
Um,
Do we have anything else on
Just
any other
that,
business?
Are you designing a new cover again? You're talking about the
we have
books,
some
right?
pictures from, that I'll have
Okay.
you folks look at, that we held aside for future annual reports.
Okay. And did I hear a work session come out of your mouth?
There is gonna be a work session, I can't, it's gonna be Friday with Jim Bean and
12,
HEB.
6, right? Yeah.
That's
What's today, the
12/6.
18th?
Yeah, that's right, 12/6.
Okay, so we're meeting again here.
Next
on the-
Monday.
On the 25th.
Yeah.
Can I ask a couple more questions?
I'm looking at this quote on the town report.
Mhm.
Doesn't look like any color pages,
Okay.
right? I mean,
I don't know, he said he was gonna replicate, I was in a, it was like really quick, and I gave him
Well,
a copy of ours, and he was supposed to replicate it.
again, I'm just scanning it here, and
Yeah.
I mean, it,
So we're looking at the little books, or we're looking at the
The
big?
bigger ones with the
so
spiral
what it
thing.
says is the cover is 4-color, the text is black.
And maybe he didn't catch that.
So, and of course, we have some color pages
Yeah.
inside, which is,
Right, and I think this was generated through what? What made him send us a letter?
Just reaching out
Okay,
to increase
so
his,
we need to create an RFP if we're gonna go that route, so we know what we're getting. We know what we're asking, I mean, if you want color in certain places. Okay,
do
anything
you
else?
want an RFP put out for the annual report for other?
We haven't discussed it yet,
Oh,
that's,
okay,
we're
just
just,
kinda-
we're chatting.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
So when we should have, I think we should have an RFP, but this is late in the day, I mean, it's 10 past 12.
It is, it's-
I'm not gonna make a decision after
Right.
12 noon, I just
Right.
wanna let you guys.
all right, no, that's good.
I have a couple little things.
I feel like
know
I'm getting
we-
wireboarded,
I
what is
know,
it?
all right, I'll be quick. So you saw the quote for a refurbished computer,
Yeah,
okay? So I don't know if I can take that, I gave that to the budget committee too,
right,
okay? And then, did you folks see the,
I have an opinion on that, but
I understand, okay, yep, you wanna do that first and then?
I'll just say that I think it's penny wise and pound foolish. Okay, and to replace an existing computer with a refurbished computer with a 30-day warranty or whatever it is, and it's gonna save us a few $100s on a machine. We don't buy 20,000 of these machines a year. In total, I'm guessing the budget impact is of changing every one of the new purchases over is, or the limited use new purchases over is $1,000, something like that. So
That would be
I'd
for two.
rather
That would be
explore-
for two.
the budget committee might decide that's what they want to do, but I think it would be irresponsible of us to purchase refurbished computers when we're replacing these for the
and
small
I'd
amount
rather
of
explore
difference.
the option of taking a computer out of Karen's office, for instance, cleaning it and giving it to Parks and Rec. You know, if we're gonna, then you know the used car you bought.
Right.
And you've owned it since it was new. Anyway.
Right.
What
So,
else,
New
Karen?
computers got what, 3-year warranty, right?
That's correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and refurbished has got a 30-day, so it's,
Yeah.
Then those, the things for the CDBG,
Yep.
I don't know if folks had a chance to look at those, if you have any changes, I'm supposed to let her know, but.
I did, and I think we have an obligation to provide housing. That's the only exposure that Tuftonboro has, but I think that is reimbursable through the grant money.
Okay,
Um,
that's something we can ask them.
The simpler the language, the better, I think.
right.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I didn't have, nothing stood out to me to make sure we include.
Which is, I'd ask her what her preferred one was, and then we'll sign it next week.
Oh, may I show you? the-
Sure.
Yeah. She did have that real simple one that you saw got replaced since she, so she literally just gave us one of each.
Yeah, she
She
gave us
suggested, I
two,
can't talk, sorry.
she gave us two different versions.
Yeah, so this is the one that's been, like, the revised one that they are recommending now, is the
Okay.
more lengthy one. And then that other one that I wrote was replaced, that's what they did, they replaced it. This is what she might have sent way back when we started, not way back, but this summer when
Okay.
we started talking about it. But it's since been replaced with this longer one. And then the other one hadn't changed, it was the same.
Okay,
Displacement.
so, I mean, I'd like to sign it for her as soon as we possibly can.
You do that at the hearing, yeah. So we just have to
Okay.
let her know of any changes in advance, but if you have any,
Okay.
if you don't, that's fine.
I have
Yeah.
no changes.
Yeah, and the notice is going out when? This week's paper?
Or was it last? I wanna say it was this past Thursday. Yeah, it was actually a big, huge ad, actually, because I remember someone pointing out how big it was, and we don't pay for that.
All right, what else?
One small thing, the note about Jack Parsons corrected his number of building permits.
Yeah,
So I'll just put that in these minutes, that there were actually 119, not 107.
right.
And I think that's it. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I'm gonna move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Mhm.